5:01 p.m. As we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Ngadjuri and Kaurna people, the traditional custodians of the land and waters of the Light Regional Council area. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Present today, I should say. We've got full attendance from the council this evening. Thank you, councillors. There are no apologies on that basis. There's no leave of absence, no non-attendance. First order of business then is the confirmation of the ordinary council meeting minutes held on Tuesday, the 22nd of April, 2025. Do I have a mover for that recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Bill. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillors, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We then move on to the confirmation of the council minutes of the special council meeting held on the 29th of April 2025. Do I have a mover of that recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Collin. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Allison. Put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Finally, it's been a busy few weeks. Confirmation of the council minutes of the special council meeting held Tuesday, the 6th of May 2025. Do I have a mover of that recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Allison. I'll take Councillor seconder, Councillor Bill. Thank you. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. I've provided to governance, for the sake of efficiency, the correspondence and various statements that I've attended or given over this month. It's been a pretty busy month in that respect. There's been a lot of publicity around the GARP, amongst other things, and also we were delighted to host Her Excellency the Governor here just after the council meeting last month, and we received some correspondence from Government House congratulating us, and in particular the staff, for a well-organised event. All right, we do have a reasonably busy agenda this evening. There are a few things just to note. So we've got 4 deputations to begin with. We're also will be entering a period of public consultation for the annual business plan as of now, or 5:15. As of now, which is 5:04 p.m. So that consultation period where people can make representations to the council about the business plan will conclude in an hour's time, that being 6:04 p.m. In the meantime, subject to anyone wishing to provide feedback to council on the budget, we'll begin with deputations from the RDA and Barossa Australia. We'll then bring forward 2 matters for decision relevant to those deputations. We'll then have the remaining deputations, 1 from Electronet. And then depending on how we're going for time, we'll deal with item 7, which is the Aegean business from the 22nd of April. And then it's been recommended to me by Councillor Bill, which I've discussed with the CEO, that there is some interest in an item in the supplementary agenda, which is item 16.3, which is a motion on notice by Councillor Peter in relation to the Drovers Encounter project. So just in the interest of those who have an interest in that topic, as it could get into the agenda a little bit later in the evening, we'll bring that item forward so that you can be present for any debate. Hopefully that all made sense. So we'll then begin with our first deputation from Regional Development Australia, and we're in your hands, Jennifer. Thank you.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Lynch, and I'm very proudly the CEO and Director of Regional Development for Regional Development Australia, Barossa, Gawler Light and Adelaide Plains. And this evening I'm also joined by our Acting Chair, Mr. Andrew Morfitt, as well as our Economic Development Manager, Dr. Laura Hodgson. Thank you. A very warm thanks and acknowledgement to Acting Mayor Michael Phillips-Ryder, elected members, thank you, Chief Executive Richard Dodson, and the Council's executive team, as well as a special mention and thanks to Kyron Chappell, General Manager for Economic Development, for the invitation to present regarding RDA BGLAP's activities and outcomes for the past 12 months, with thanks to this Council's funding and support. We have prepared a presentation this evening that provides an exhaustive overview of everything that we've achieved and the outcomes for the last 12 months. But in the interest of keeping to time, we are going to touch on some of the information provided and really welcome and encourage elected members to review that report and the presentation following as well. Excuse me. Before I get into the detail of what we've actually delivered in the last 12 months, and indeed for this council area, I wanted to take a very quick minute to just introduce myself briefly, as I've recently joined the RDA BGLAP team. And so whilst it's only month 4 for me as CEO, much of my career has very much been spent working in regions or alongside regional sectors. My background is firmly established in the primary industries and agri-food sector, as well as the sustainability discipline, having worked most recently as a senior national leader for Deloitte Australia, heading up their agri-food practice to help some of Australia and very much South Australia's most iconic food producers. As well as prior to this, I was CEO for the McLaren Vale wine region. So nice to be on the northern side of South Australia as well. I'm very proud to have joined the RDA team, and I'm very proud to be working alongside the Light Regional Council team as well with the elected members. And so I'll just step forward in the next couple of slides, but again, encourage elected members, council and the executive team to review any of this report at your discretion as well. Stopping here to provide an update on our revenue and funding. So our RDA and indeed RDAs in South Australia are funded by all 3 levels of government, so federal, state and local. The funding that we receive from all of our 3 core funding partners is then leveraged further against other grant activities and money so that we can deliver even more outcomes and economic development across our regions as well. What's important to note here is that the South Australian model is actually viewed nationally as best practice, because in South Australia, only South Australian RDAs are actually funded by the state government, whereas in all other adjacent states and territories, it's just federal and local funding. Touching on some beer mat mathematics for this council's contribution in the last 12 months and forward-coming 12 months. This council, alongside our other 3 representative councils, co-contributes roughly $45,000. And just looking at what is our total core funding amount from federal, state and other local government partners, we receive just over $850,000 per annum. So for every dollar that Light Regional Council tips in, we further leverage that with another $16. And when we then multiply that with additional grants and funding that we receive for some of our major projects, such as the Barossa Regional University campus, for which we have several students from the Light Regional Council area attending, as well as the leadership program, for which we welcomed a number of members from the community here as well. That totals nearly 1.3 million, and so we leverage $1 from Light Regional Council nearly 26 times over. Stepping forward again and just touching on what are our regional priorities across the greater BGLAP area. We principally look at housing, workforce education and skills, infrastructure, land use planning, and of course the sustainability of all of these. And therefore our core business activities, the way in which we deliver economic development and benefit for your communities and businesses across your region, is through business development, so that capacity and capability building, sector development for those representative sectors, including grape and wine and tourism, for example, and the economic development. So looking at what is all of the infrastructure or that sinew that brings good communities and working environments together in regional areas. And finally, our 4th core business activity principally relates to advocacy, consultation and communications. So now getting into the really good stuff and a little bit more detail. Again, with the next following slides, we've produced quite a lot of detail as to the activities that we've specifically delivered within Light Regional Council, as well as activities that have benefit to Light Regional Council. I think in the interest of time, I'm just going to present two examples of what we've achieved in the last 12 months. And again, would encourage councillors to take a look at this report when you have a moment. Of the examples forthcoming, there's 17 core examples, of which we've directly supported more than 60 businesses across the Light Regional Council area, 53 students currently studying at our Barossa Regional University campus, and more than 100 individuals from your communities and local businesses as well. Just stepping forward. So the first example that I wanted to touch on here of activities that relate to sector development, business development and economic development is what's known as our B2B program. So this is where we take local business providers, so those that have subject matter expertise within areas of marketing, financial literacy, HR, accounting, for example, and we match those with any other businesses identifying the needed support in their own business so that they can overcome any challenges or take advantages of opportunities within their business or coming forward in their business. Specifically within Light Regional Council, and apologies for the size of the text on the presentation as well, we've directly supported 21 businesses within the Light Regional Council area over the last 12 months. And we've also welcomed a new service provider, so a known business provider across the BGLAP region, to provide business advice to other small businesses across the region as well. It's a terrific program that's well participated, heavily subsidised by the RDA, also with thanks to this council's funding, and has been going now for more than 10 years. And absolutely, the rubber hits the road on this as a strong example of small business capacity and capability building and that development in the region. The second example that I wanted to touch on tonight, again, relates to sector development, business development and economic development, but probably more wrapped up in the realms of what is local community leadership and empowering local leaders. This here are some examples of our Empowered Leaders program, whereby the Leaders Institute of South Australia, who also deliver the Governor's Leadership program, you might be familiar with that one, came into region, and we put through a number of individuals that are currently representatives on local volunteer and community steercos and boards, currently wishing to step up and do more in their steercos, their boards and their local areas, and helping them understand what are great leadership skills that they can take back into their local and volunteer organisations to build that continuity and leadership within our communities and certainly across the BGLAP area. Again, apologies for the font size, but to the right-hand side of this slide, at least, is a number of the Light Regional Council graduates specific to our most recent cohort. They graduated in March, and a number of those, I think 7 in total, have then taken that leadership learning back into a number of their organisations to build that out through the community for business development and community enhancement as well. Again, stepping forward through a number of other activities that we've undertaken that have had direct benefit to Light Regional Council. And then just finally landing here on this slide, a couple of examples of where we've had region-wide engagement with Light Regional Council for delivery and coordination with the adjacent councils that we work with as well. And so on that note, I'm going to leave it there and say thank you very much for your support over the last 12 months. And I hope in the forward coming 12 months as well. And I'll pass to Andrew Morfitt, our Acting Chair, for closing comments. Thank you.
I'm the fluff at the bottom of the page. All of the serious business stuff has been covered. Can I have that? Yeah, perfect. So I just really, to close, is to really talk about the board, because that is one of the pieces that underpin the fact that it's a local and it's a regional area. Rolf Binder, who is currently overseas, is chair. I'm normally deputy chair. Rolf and I both live in this council area. The other people that we should talk about is Bridget Kimber and Natalie Seaman, who are also light residents, light council residents. So in terms of the board, it's got a very significant level of representation. One of the things that we have in South Australia is that we also have on the board places for representatives from each of the 4 councils. So we have the CEOs of both Barossa and Gawler on the committee, and then we've also got David Bailey, who is the economic development manager for Adelaide Plains, and Kyron. Kyron's been on the board since 2021 and has been a really good contributor to the board and is able to bring to the table conversation around what's important for this particular region, this particular council. On that, I'd really just like to say thank you. On behalf of our team and the board, we appreciate the positive working relationship we have at all levels into the council, because we do engage and touch in with staff at various points along the way, and we look forward to continuing our work with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer and Andrew, for your informative presentation. Councillors, do you have any questions in relation to the presentation? Well, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Lynette.
I'd just like to thank you for that presentation. It was really good. It was very informative, and seeing that you're new, you probably learn a bit from this too. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Lynette. All right, thank you. Jennifer and Andrew. Sorry, that one. Yeah. Okay, so councillors, there's a related report for decision at item 13.1, and it's been suggested to me, and I agree, that we should bring it forward now and deal with it prior to the next deputation. Do I have a mover for bringing forward item 13.1? Thank you, Councillor Simon. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Dean. Let's wait for you guys to catch up. Sorry. Oh, vote. Sorry. Yeah, I'll put that to a vote. Sorry, councillors. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. Fine. All right, councillors. So there was a report for decision provided in the agenda at item 13.1. The recommendation is up on your screen. It's fairly self-explanatory. Councillor Simon.
Yeah, but I think the RDA does a great job, and the more they do, the less we need to do. So I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Terrific. Thank you, Councillor Simon. Do I have a seconder? I think it was Councillor Allison. Councillor Allison, would you like to speak to it? Thank you. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this recommendation? No, in that case, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. All right. We then return to our second deputation for the evening, which is from Barossa Australia, Scott Hazeldine and Ruby Stobart. Over to you. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us tonight. It's always great to take the opportunity to come and present to council, so we're really appreciative of that. Really today, I just wanted to provide some update to you on the work we've been engaged in over the last 12 months in partnership with the Light Regional Council, to outline some of the results we've been able to achieve on behalf of members and the ratepayers, and to provide a glimpse of sort of our future focus together moving forward. As a starting point, I really just wanted to set the scene, I guess, and to outline the challenging operating conditions that many of our businesses and industries currently face. The trading environment can be described, I guess, as relatively volatile and dynamic and constantly changing. We've got some large-scale global forces at play, both here in our region, but in many regions around the world. And I've just highlighted a couple up there. We all see some geopolitical uncertainty on the news every night. That's impacting trade. We're seeing that in increased freight costs and input costs. And you have to talk to some of our growers about their fertilizer prices and that to see that. We've got cost of living pressures continuing at the moment. That's impacting disposable income and buying decisions. We've got an increasingly competitive market across many of the industries we represent there as well. We've got the rise of things like health and moderation when it comes to alcohol consumption, but also considered consumption around travel and carbon footprint there as well. So all of these are playing a part in ensuring that it's a really moving landscape there as well, but often meaning a downturn in those markets there that we're having to deal with. On top of that, you've obviously got some local influences like the dry conditions that we've all experienced recently there as well. While there's some challenges, I guess there is some positivity out there. This is the latest wine export figures from Wine Australia. I draw your attention to sort of those three figures up there on the top left, which refer to total value, total volume of exports, and the average price per litre. And obviously pleasing, you'll see in the orange triangles an increase in both. As you look at the Barossa as a region there as well, it's even more pleasing. I think you've got an increase somewhere around 128% in the value of exports going out of the Barossa at the moment. And that price per litre is about $18, nearly $19. So that's about 4 times the national average, or over 4 times the national average. And I think really speaks to the value of the regional brand and that Barossa and its products are really well sought out. But I guess it's a crucial time. All other markets are in contraction there as well. So we're really working hard on behalf of the region to make sure we're visible and present. And this is our major tool to drive wealth and income down into the region. If we sell more and we get more people to visit, we see it in our businesses. The growers sell more. We see more spend in district from visitors there as well. I guess just a quick reminder about Barossa Australia and who we are. We're obviously a multi-sector peak body. We represent the grape growers, winemakers and tourism operators of the region. And we have a whole of region focus right across the Barossa and work with partnership with key regional stakeholders and have a number of touch points into those areas that those stakeholders engage in as well. At the heart of those relationships is our relationship with local government and RDA there as well. For us, that's almost a holy triangle. At the start, we've worked particularly hard in the last 12 to 18 months in conjunction with those key stakeholders of ensuring, we find our place. We know where we're best positioned to deliver value on behalf of the region, and we're not duplicating each other in that. And my thanks go to Richard and Karin and the staff for that continuing positive engagement around there as well. I guess a little bit like Jen mentioned there, for every dollar that comes into the organisation, we've got a really strong track record of leveraging a considerable amount out the back end as well. So overall, about 30% extra is leveraged from what comes in the door. Where do we act? I guess those are our key strategic regional focus there. Those top 2 pillars, which are called brand and demand, essentially are all about how do we maintain Barossa's reputation and how do we get more people to visit and buy more of our stuff. So in some ways, I guess one of the key roles of Barossa Australia is to act as the regional marketing agency. And that's where we have some really complementary skill set that adds to those that our stakeholder partners may not have as well. We've got marketers in the building ready to do that. Outside of that, we're involved in intelligence and capability. That's really about information and making sure we're providing insight into those businesses and increasing the skills in region through seminars, workshops, training. And then I guess using that network that I just showed you before to really ensure the region has a strong voice into government and into industry as well. If we look at those twin pillars of brand and demand driving, how are we doing that? I guess we're doing that through a really integrated mix of activities there. At the heart is the regional website, barossa.com, which we drive traffic to. We're engaging in organic and paid social media there as well through a really extensive network. The key here is that the reach we're able to get there is significant. So we're able to touch point a vast number of people. We're engaging directly through emails and electronic communication. We're facilitating visits from media and trade into region as well to get extra eyes on. And we've also got our own boots on the ground to make sure we're supporting that. Apologies. Let's just, it's going the wrong way on me. Oh, dear. Apologies while I work out this. This one after the one I had. That's the one. Thank you. Really quickly, I just wanted to touch on the regional website. This has just undergone a significant rebuild. We put 4 websites into one. It's really allowing us to showcase the region as a whole much better there. And you can see down there 2 really good examples of like regional council producers there on show. It's allowing us to put some seasonality in there as well. And ultimately, this is our biggest tool to drive traffic to members' websites. So we're really using this to get visitors in and to engage with the businesses. We're also obviously deeply engaged with magnifying local events and trying to get people in region around those. And we're all aware of some of those recent gatherings that we've had there as well around Gather Round and Barossa Vintage Festival there as well, and worked really closely with staff from Light Regional Council on the festival. From a regional leadership point of view, I guess it's really about making sure we've got a voice on key issues. Long-term water security remains very much at the front of that, and we're advocating into government strongly around those. We're also heavily involved in the state regional tourism review at the moment, and the conduit from SATC back into council on that, and ensuring a unified voice from region. And we've just been engaged in, I guess, a significant number of activities around training and support into growers in the current conditions. So we've managed to leverage about $300,000 to support growers around the National Sustainability Framework, some skills around mental health training, business fundamentals. So we've had about 300 local growers through over the last 2 months in that. So that's been particularly pleasing. I guess in closing, where we're pointed in 26, I think it's much of the same. It's important we continue to work. There is some guiding lights up there as well, but it's really about putting the region first, making sure we're across the really important markets, both home and abroad, making sure we're visible and present in there as well, and making sure we're delivering Barossa to the world in one voice. Thank you very much. Appreciate all the support to date. Thank you to Richard and the staff there, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, Scott, for a great presentation. Councillors, does anyone have any questions? I do have a question, if I may. That's questioned without notice. So I'm curious to know. They talked a bit about wine, and the growth in the exports and things like that, which was pleasing to see. What sort of trends are you seeing in terms of visitation in tourism, sort of year on year?
Yeah.
How's that going at the moment?
Yeah, I think, look, there is no doubt visitation to regional areas, particularly out of Adelaide, has been challenging. Yeah, I think in long-term trends for international and interstate visitors, we've normalised to pre-COVID levels. So that's holding really well. The recent addition of sort of air routes back into Adelaide is helping a lot in that. So I think from the interstate and the international point of view, we're really happy with things. We're working really hard to make sure we've got bookable product in region and people can get eyes on the Barossa from afar, and that's starting to really yield some results. As I hinted at, I think, cost of living pressures are still impacting day trippers out of Adelaide, and that's where regional events like Gather Round and the Vintage Festival have been really important. We've clearly seen a spike with that, and I think our goal is to keep giving them an excuse to come and visit us all up here.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Councillor Simon, I jumped the queue. Over to you.
No problems. Thanks, Scott, for the great presentation. As you said in your own words, I think you said your main goal is to spread the Barossa reputation around the world and make people buy our stuff, which I totally agree with. That's great. So my question would be, if I read in the agreement or the draft agreement that you have with us, it says BA's function is to grow, to support, I mean, amongst other things, to support viticultural primary producers, and support the Barossa grape growing and winemaking community. So my question would be, and I understand that you're largely funded by the winemaking, by the wine industry. So why is there no space or no mention of other primary producers like, Broadacre farmers and maybe the few dairies that are left? And I mean, we used to have apricots grown at Angus Park and all this stuff. There's no mention of that. So I just wonder why that would be.
Yeah, sure. I guess, so I mean, our remit is obviously particularly around grape growers, I guess in there as well. So obviously we are funded on one hand by the levy from grape growers and winemakers. That's a really important piece. I mean, we are over 900 members, of which 550 are primary producers and grape growers. So that's the largest cohort there as well. That piece is significantly important, and I guess the leveraging of funds that I talked about this year, that has all been in the grape growing sector there too. So I think, we're definitely focused across those three areas. When Barossa Tourism and the Barossa Grape and Wine Association merged, we were very much focused at keeping those interests and targets maintained within the organisation as we've continued to evolve and speak with one voice across the region. We're definitely working on things that cover all three sectors at once if we can. But at the heart of what we do lies the grape grower.
If I may,
Councillor Simon?
do you see any room to maybe include those people in the future? Because if you want to promote the Barossa, these are part of the Barossa, these part of the food experience and all this stuff. Like if you go to the farmer markets and whatever, you don't buy grapes, you buy all sorts of other stuff. So, it's part of it.
Yeah, and look, some of those are covered in through our non-levy contributor, essentially what is a tourism member into Barossa Australia. So there's a wide array of businesses represented there through, producers, retail, restaurants, accommodation. But we are looking at what that mix is, and is there room to widen that? That's very much on the agenda at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillors, any other questions? Scott? Councillor Collin?
Yeah, what's your position on the wind farm? I remember I rang you about that. And what was Barossa Australia's position on that?
There as well. I think at the moment we're gathering information there as well. Obviously, we have a large membership base, and there's views for and against on a number of issues there as well. I think generally BA has taken the role to ensure that we're gathering the information and we're disseminating it to our members to make a decision. If the view back from the membership is that we should have a view, we will have a view there. But I think on this particular issue, we're engaging and trying to gather the information and there and see, make sure that is passed on to those that are involved. Yeah. But the board is essentially watching, waiting, and engaging those touch points to see. Yeah.
Thank you, Scott. So there's a related report for decision. So councillors, I'd like to suggest that we bring forward item 13.2, reports for decision. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Collin, and a seconder. Councillor Allison, thank you. And thank you also, Councillor Lynette. We'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll wait for Corey and Carrie to catch up and bring that forward. So while they're doing that, councillors, did anyone have any questions in relation to the report in the agenda? No, are there any updates, Sky or Kyron, we need to provide? No? Okay. Right. Do we have a mover for this recommendation, councillors? Thank you, Councillor Dean. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Dean? You're right. Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Lynette, thank you. Would you like to speak to it? Thank you. Councillors, would anyone like to speak to the recommendation before we put it to a vote? No, in that case, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors, and thank you once again to the RDA and Barossa Australia for their deputations this evening. The next deputation, or the final deputation for this evening, is from Stephanie Hensgen at Electranet.
Hi everyone, I'm David Chancellor. I'm the Project Director for the Northern Transmission Project, and I'll just say thank you for your time tonight. So what is the Northern Transmission Project about? I'll describe its requirements and what's really driving the requirement for a new transmission line, which is effectively what the project is. It's to meet the growing demand for electricity. So we're seeing a growing demand for electric vehicles and growing load in the Adelaide area. We're also seeing some substantially growing industrial loads and inquiries for industrial loads in the north of the state, so specifically in the Upper Spencer Gulf, so Whyalla, and also a lot of mining opportunities that are becoming that are making inquiries to Electranet for connections. So, one thing that Electranet is substantially involved is the support for a net zero transition. So, we've got the largest penetration of renewals, I think, in the world, and that's one thing that South Australia should be proud of, and Electranet's very proud of. We need to continue doing that. So there's more renewables that need to connect to the network to be able to meet zero emissions status. So this project allows the connection of those new opportunities, those new generation that will support the net zero transition. It's also about strengthening the transmission network resilience. So we're looking at if we're going to build a new line, we should build it in an area where we're maybe not next to existing lines. So we've seen storms that can cause failures in transmission lines. And we've seen storms that can cause failures in multiple transmission lines. So if we build new lines away from where those existing lines are, then we increase the network resilience, because the likelihood of a storm event or a bushfire or a similar sort of event, a catastrophic event for a transmission network affecting multiple lines and therefore affecting the network. So that's something that's certainly a driver for us. Talk quickly about what is transmission. So who are Electranet? So its utilities existed a long time ago and had the disaggregation, became multiple components. So this generation, we don't get involved in generation, but we connect to generators. So we're the highway network, if you like, to get the power from the generators to the users. So we effectively are the conduit between generation and distribution, so SA Power Networks. We have some direct connect customers, but largely it's the generators and SA Power Networks is where the power flow is, and that's what our network's all about. Then there's retail and the consumers, but that's where we sit in the energy ecosystem. The project is committed to a number of guiding principles. I'm not going to go through them all in detail, but meaningful engagement is something that we're really focused on. Josephine Telfer's with me tonight. She's our engagement lead. We've got a whole engagement team that are working on engaging with the community, the broader community, so that everyone can understand and have an input, have a say on what it is that we do. We're all about protecting land and place. So there's environmental obligations we have, and we're committed to those. In fact, we're going over and above. We're looking at getting Infrastructure Sustainability Council certification for the project. So that's the highest level of certification that we can find. We're also very serious about protecting heritage. We want to deliver tangible benefits. So we do want to, and we're interested in some feedback on what opportunities there might be. What can we leave behind in the community that leaves the community in a better place than we found it? We can't solve all the problems of the world, but we can see what opportunities there are to align them with what we're doing, and maybe leave some benefits for generations to come. That's what we're certainly looking at opportunities and interested in feedback. We're about transparent decision making. So that's something that's pretty focused on myself and my leadership team. So every decision we'll make, we'll explain why we made it and give the background and be very clear about why we chose to do one thing over another. And we're also all about value for money. So at the end of the day, the way the electronet's funded is through your electricity bills, so the supply charge. So we're a regulated monopoly that's funded effectively through the Australian Energy Regulator. So it's our obligation to make these to undertake these developments that are value for money. They're not cheap, but we're all about doing the best we can to deliver outcomes for the community. Current activities. So we're going through project development, preferred solution route selection at the moment. We'll be moving into planning, assessments and approvals probably early next year, and then through design and construction through 28, 29 and deliver the project in around about 2030. So these sorts of things take at least 6 years to build. So we've been working on it for a little while, but that's the time frame that we're working on. Should press the right button. So it's important to state that we do not have a firm route yet. So we're working on that. We're seeking feedback on that. So we basically, the bottom point there, a multi-criteria assessment process. So we've identified a project area. We've done a whole lot of constraints mapping, understand what constraints we have, where those exist, what corridors exist. So we've selected corridors, and we're now working with the community to understand what the criteria for selection of a route is, and then working out how we weight those, and we're scoring on those starting next week. So we're moving from corridor from a number of corridor options to a preferred corridor in the next few weeks, and then we'll take that and determine a route, and then start working on the easement acquisition process, so that we can be working, on the environmental development approvals that we need to submit. Talked a bit about the study area. We're basically at preferred route status. So the bright green that you see there are the corridors that we've selected, and now we're working through a number of workshops to determine what the preferred corridor is going to be. There are a number of options. This is what you're looking for. So in your area, these are the sorts of the corridors that we've selected. These are available on the website to have a look at. They're pretty broad. They're a couple of kilometres wide. Question? No, sorry. So we have a couple of options. One option is to build the line to power substation. that's at Gould Creek. Another option is to build this line through the northern suburbs to around about somewhere near Globe Derby. So we're still working on what the preferred option is, and we've got to select corridors with some other considerations in terms of market benefits and the whole economic analysis that we're working through. Yeah, got a question?
Yeah, thank you. So is it fair to say, with the exception of a couple of the corridors are intended to follow existing infrastructure paths? So it looks like they're following, is it grey roads or oh no, sorry, Sturt Highway, Horrocks Highway. So what's the grey line?
Yeah, the thick grey lines are roads, and some of the thin grey lines are existing infrastructure. So the answer is not exactly, sometimes, but not always. And in terms of our existing infrastructure, we're certainly looking at building it so that it's not alongside existing infrastructure, because that makes the network more resilient to do it that way. Current activities and timelines. This is a fairly detailed slide, but what it's intended to show is that we're going through a process seeking feedback. We'll take that feedback, then do the next step, seek feedback, the next step, seek feedback. So it's about narrowing down to a final route, a final option that everyone's happy based on continuous feedback that we'll be seeking.
Sorry, just at what point, so you're running your multi-criteria assessment now on the various corridors?
Yeah, so we've had project introduction workshops and all councils were invited to those. So they've been held, they were held around about Easter. We held last week workshops to talk through what the criteria are and what the weightings are and how we're going to score those. And it's next week that we start doing the scoring process.
So it occurs to me that a number of those options all run through this council. So at what point does the community get input? After you've chosen a preferred route or during?
Yeah. Do you want to talk to that? Yeah.
What I've got on the table is some fact sheets that we can leave here. So we're really targeting, because it is such a broad study area, a lot of people aren't interested until it's a much narrower study area. So we do have fact sheets up and we've got websites up that are publicly available for everyone. And that's part of what we're asking as we work with our key stakeholders is please share this so people in your communities can be aware that we're out there. We're also attending shopping centres and like on the 4th of June, we're actually going to have a table out the front of Foodland at Kapunda, because we know that you can have a website, but if nobody knows to look for the website, then it's a little bit useless anyway. So we are actually trying to be on the ground to give people a chance to provide feedback to the process as well. And on the website, once you get there, that map that we showed you with the corridors, there's an interactive version of that anybody can click on and leave comments about specific areas that they think should be avoided. And we've also got a survey that's open for the general public as well to begin to identify areas where they see particular areas of concern that they want us to reduce impacts to or manage impacts. And so we're trying to work with communities to work out what things need to be totally avoided, what things need to be closely managed, and then what are some opportunities from the project, both from route selection as well as from broader community benefits. Thank you. Yes, I had my watch.
Sorry, so just to round that out, so how are you making people aware of this pop-up thing at the Foodland? How do people, assume social media, but...
So, yeah, we've got social media. So being at Foodland is to make people aware. We're working on going to where people are at. It will be also on the website, but we know that we can't just rely on one communication channel. So the website will direct people to the pop-up and the pop-up will direct people to the website, and at both locations there'll be an opportunity to do that. We also would really love if council was willing to share on their socials and work with councils to understand what mechanisms you use to reach out to your communities as well, because we know that it's probably a challenge that you guys are well aware of.
Yeah, I think it would be pretty important for the council to do that if we can. Councillor Collin?
All right, a couple. So can we go back to that map? So are you talking, there's going to be 3 different ones? So is that coming from
They're the options, so we're selecting one of those. So,
one of those?
so the brownie coloured area is the project area that we determined.
So one's coming from that new Robertstown.
This is all going to Robertstown, so the line will go to the new
So
substation,
it'll go to the new
Robertstown, Bundy.
substation and then
That's-
go north. Yeah.
That's where the interconnector is, so that's where power can flow into
And
state.
Goyder 1 and Goyder 2, you know,
Yeah.
the wind farm.
Yeah, it's actually the Bundy substation, the Electronet substation that we'll be connecting to.
Yep.
That's then got links north and south, and we'll be reinforcing those links and make them so
And that-
much more.
Yeah, and interconnected to
Yeah.
New South Wales. But the other question is, what compensation is there for landholders if you are putting a power line through the properties?
Yeah, so there's a compensation process that we go through a process of meeting with all the landowners, understanding what preferences are for where it may or may not exist, and what's appropriate and how, what's their land use and how they use the property, and an assessment will be done of the value and all of those other considerations under the Land Acquisition Act. And then a negotiation process. So if the question is sort of leading down the path of is it compulsory acquisition, no, that's not what we do. That's a last resort. That's the power that we have, but we don't use it wherever we. It's like something that we'll use if at the very last opportunity. But it's all about negotiation. So there's no fixed amount. It's based on the value of the land use and the impact to the land.
But traditionally with a power line, it's a one-off payment, isn't it, per pole?
That's right. Yeah, correct. Yeah. Yeah, and that is how we're anticipating. It's not going to be an annual payment.
Thank you. Councillors, Councillor Bill?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, David and partner. Interesting presentation. How big is this system? I've got the Port Augusta lines going through my farm at the moment.
Yeah.
Is that small fry compared to what we're looking at?
Yeah, so this line will be at either 275,000, 330,000, or possibly 500,000 volts. So 500,000 volts is not a voltage that we have in South Australia at this stage. That would only be an option from Bundy around to Whyalla. So from Adelaide to Bundy through your area, it's either 275 or 330. So when you see our transmission lines, it's the larger version that you see. The smaller ones that are sort of 2/3 the height are usually 132,000 volts. That makes sense?
So they're the bigger than that.
They're big. Yeah. So to get the capacity and to ensure that we only, we don't need to keep building this as the demand grows, they necessarily need to be large.
And if I may, the public consultation is the shopping centres, but is there going to be public community meetings and discussion sessions?
So yes, we're going to focus first on having conversations out in the community. And what you might appreciate by this approach is we're actually talking to communities a lot earlier than what we normally would, or what traditionally happens in projects like this. Often projects will come out once they have a route determined. And so at the moment, what we're doing is we're referring to it as it's a really iterative and ongoing engagement process. We are updating information really quickly because we've got timelines to meet for the project. And so we had to make a decision. Do we release information and update it fairly quickly? So we're talking every 4 to 6 weeks. We first put out the study map about 4 to 6 weeks ago, and now we've updated corridors. We've taken that decision because we want to give people an opportunity to respond to the information that we have at hand. If we were going to be doing slow, long engagement periods at every phase of the development process, we'd have to just come to you with a study area, and then we'd come back to you with a preferred route, and we wouldn't have the chance for people to begin to identify all of these risks. So there will become a point where we will have more of those community information sessions and whatnot. But what we are learning, because it's a linear project, is it's really difficult to, if you're going to do a big, good community event, you need to staff it appropriately. And we're looking at 600 kilometres here. And so we'd rather do what we call a more on-ground, low-frills engagement process where we can be where people already are and capture people than do singular one-off really big events as well. Does that help? But we'll also listen to what the community's asking for as well. And if we're in venues and they're like, oh, we want to get more information, then we'll be really adaptive in our approach as well.
Thank you. thank you for your presentation, and yeah, we look forward to hearing more and the opportunity for the community to provide feedback.
And if you do want to provide feedback to our process too, we'd really appreciate that as well, because we know that you guys know your communities better than we do. Would
Thank you.
like to leave these here?
Thank you.
All right, councillors, that brings us to item 6.4. Oh, sorry. Yeah, apologies. I've just been reminded the consultation process is still open, so we'll keep moving through the agenda. Item 7, councillors, you might recall, is an adjourned item from the 22nd of April. This was a motion that was moved by Councillor Bill and seconded by Councillor Dean in relation to the Plant and Fleet Replacement Program 2025-2026. So this item then comes to this meeting to be dealt with. I guess I've reflected on this because I've voiced some views around the acquisition of plant by the council, and I think what we're really being asked to do here is to either endorse or not endorse a recommendation to replace fleet that's coming of age or becoming a maintenance burden, or investing in plant and fleet that's needed to deliver the programs and priorities that the council has set. Councillors, are there any questions or comments? Are there any updates since the 22nd of April that we need to think about before we bring this back for a vote? Councillor Simon?
If I can make a comment, because last time this motion was adjourned on the basis that we don't have enough information and that we probably want this report. Now, in the meantime, this report did come out, but to my, I suppose, disappointment, it did really not answer the questions that I had. So at this point in time, I'm really not much further ahead with having the information that I need to make a decision on this. So I'm a bit in a strange situation here, because the brief for that report was quite different than the report that we actually received.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Simon. I sort of made a similar note that it was adjourned for that reason, because we're awaiting a detailed report. Do we have an update on when that report's likely to be provided to council, Megan?
Thank you, through the chair. The report will be presented at the June council meeting.
Okay, thanks, Megan. Councillor Ellison?
Thank you, Mayor. Michael, I was just going to say that I agree with Councillor Simon. I'd like to wait until I have more information on it.
All right, so I guess from a process point of view, there's a couple of options here. One is that we vote on it as it stands, or another option is that can we adjourn it again, carry to the June meeting. That's an option if a councillor wanted to move that as a motion. This motion's been moved and seconded already, so do we need to vote on it anyway or not?
Yeah, the matter obviously has to be dealt with because it's an adjourned item. I would need to refer to some papers on whether it can be adjourned again. So you just have to leave that one with me for 1 second.
Well, on any alternative, could we lay it on the table and then pick it up in June?
No, certainly wouldn't recommend that in any process, because it's not preferred.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Collin?
Oh, just a question. So with the report that was done by the consultant, is there any chance we can have it outside of a meeting, or we have to have it has to be presented in a meeting first? Because we've already had, I forget the woman's name, presented to us. Would there be any chance we could see it outside of a meeting so we could be informed at the June meeting?
Sorry, just so Megan, did you want to respond to Councillor Collins' question first?
Thank you, through the chair. I believe the presentation is available to be provided to the elected members now. So that can be provided to you, which from what the consultant has said to me, summarises everything that was in her report.
So will that have the figures on because I think one of the things that was asked in the resolution was figures on the use of plant, and that will all be in there, because that's what we've been waiting. That's why we adjourned this item, to find out, so we could read that information to make a decision.
Through the chair, the presentation is what you've seen already. That's what's available at the moment. The actual report is not yet available to be provided to elected members. That's once we've
But to be clear, that won't be supplied until the June meeting. That's what right.
that's coming at June meeting, yes.
Yeah, I think it is correct to say that, as Councillor Collin has pointed out, that one of the features of the report that I was hoping for was on the plant utilisation, just so we could get a handle on whether we should be spending capital on plant or not. So, Carrie, do you need a bit longer? Do we want to come back to this item? Can we do that?
Sorry, no. Being an agenda item, it needs to be dealt with immediately. Yeah.
Right. Well, in that case, does anyone else want to speak on the motion as it is?
What? I'll just repeat what I said. I don't think I have enough information to make an informed decision, so I will have to vote against it.
Thank you, Councillor Simon. Councillor Bill?
Yeah, well, I move the motion at the time. I'm quite happy to support the motion as it stands and allow for the fleet to be replaced as required.
Thank you, Councillor Bill. Councillors, if there's nobody else that wishes to speak on this motion, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried, I think. Yep, thank you. Thank you, councillors, and thank you for your patience, just trying to get my head around the meeting
Could I call
procedures.
for a division on that, thanks?
Sure, thank you. Councillor Allison's called for a division. So those in favour of the motion, please stand behind your chairs if you're able to. Are we right now, Kerry? Thank you, councillors. You can now take your seats. All right. So the public consultation period is now complete for the draft annual business plan and budget. So then we return to item 6.4. Is there a presentation or is this just a note? Well, there's a, yeah, we'll bring, sorry. Okay, so sorry, I'm just trying to get the order of bringing things forward right. So we'll bring forward Hafiz's presentation on the annual business plan, thank you, which is item 12.7. Because I know that there's some people here interested in aspects of that. And then we'll bring forward item 16.3, Drovers Encounter, after that. So in order to do that, though, we'll need a mover to bring forward item 12.7. Thanks, Councillor Simon, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Collin. Councillors, will put that to a vote. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried. All right, so Hafiz, I think we're in your hands now. Do we need some time to catch up on that? Yep.
Thank you through the chair. item 12.7 is a report for information, so it wouldn't be brought out to be received. It would, I believe there's just a presentation being done. So we won't be bringing an item forward because there's no decision to be made. Thank you.
Yeah, there is. So, Carrie, just to clear this up, so now there is a presentation that's going to be given on the, which is item 6.4. So we're returning to 6.4 and not bringing an item forward.
Yeah, effectively. But then we won't bring an item forward because we're not, you're not making a decision on the matter. It can
Correct.
just still be received in the reports for information.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll receive the presentation then. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So sorry for the phone, but I'll make sure I'll read it quite loud. So all this document is showing the elected members and, you know, all the guests in this room is all the submission that we have received for during the public consultation period for 21 days on the draft annual business plan and long-term financial plan. The first 4 submissions on this screen on the submission that we have received have already been incorporated into the report, which is the 12.7 that we were referring to earlier. So they have literally been copy and pasted. The bottom 2 that are in yellow color highlighted are the ones that we have received since then. I do believe that, to the chair, I do believe that, you know, there's one of the components is about the Ebenezer Road, and you would like to have a discussion on that, which is the number 4 from the submission that we have received. So basically, we received a letter through the mayor, through the acting mayor, which was, you know, raising some serious concerns about the, you know, the condition of the road, Ebenezer Road and Research Road. And obviously that letter was distributed to the relevant staff. And then I believe that one of the guest speakers are already here to be able to add to that, you know, those comments. So if you would like to have discussion on that, Mr. Mayor, so I'm happy to.
Yeah, thanks, Hafiz. And there's people here today.
Thank you.
Sorry, councillors and guests, we're just clearing up some formalities about how we run through this according to our meeting procedures. So councillors, what we're going to do here is receive a presentation from Hafiz that sets out the community feedback that's been received in relation to the annual business plan. We'll deal with this as we do other presentations or deputations that we receive. So Hafiz will provide a summary of the feedback, some of which is in the agenda anyway. And then councillors can ask questions or provide commentary in relation to that. So we still need to do it in a structured way. So returning then to item the feedback on Ebenezer and Research Road. So there was a letter that I received from a resident. I've had some phone call dialogue with that resident. There's also some media in the Barossa Leader in relation to this. Councillors might recall that Councillor Collin moved a motion that became a resolution that we fund Ebenezer Road and an upgrade of Ebenezer Road in year 1. I believe that when subsequent to that, for genuine reasons, there was a view that we should do it in year 3, and that's what's gone out in the annual business plan, and hence we've received some feedback from the community that they'd like to see some more urgency around it. So that's something we'll have to consider as we discuss the budget further. Do we want to round off the rest of the feedback before we talk about what that might mean?
Yep, through the chair, yes. So basically during the 21 days of public consultation, we had 2 drop-in sessions at Hewitt and also at Kapunda office. And obviously that has been explained in my report, but we had 1 community person attended the session in Kapunda and 1 person, there was nobody attended the Hewitt Center one. And then we had online one. There was no registration for the online one. And then we had this today for 1 hour. Of course, we did not have anybody. So these are the 6 submissions that we have received. And the first submission, I can quickly go through all of them so that we can come to the Ebenezer Road in the end. So if you go to the first one, please. So basically the first one was basically at the drop-in session that we had in Kapunda office. That was a face-to-face session. And, there was a discussion about the long-term financial plan and tourism budget, Rovers Encounter, and, Lightning and Adelaide expansion. And some of the questions that we had on the day, we obviously answered the community member at the time. And some of the questions were taken on notice by some of my colleagues. And obviously they also talk about the urban growth and zoning and the budgetary impacts. One of the things that they discussed quite in detail was regarding the cut in the tourism budget. And again, they gave us this, message to deliver to the elected members. So I'm basically presenting a summarized version of the discussion that we had. But my understanding is that the elected members will have the actual copies of the emails that we have received uploaded on the portal. And obviously we have hidden their names and other details for the privacy reasons.
I'll probably say, for the sake of brevity, I think some of this is actually in the published agenda. So we probably don't need to go through it in
That's exactly right.
great detail.
Yeah. And the second one was regarding, we had a request regarding a support to upgrade the public toilet facilities at the Marananga area. And obviously after having a discussion with my colleagues and my CEO, that toilet facility is not owned by council, but again, they have requested some support to support them in terms of they're looking after the maintenance of that toilet facility. The next one that we received was and again, there was a ratepayer business owner from town and, giving us a feedback regarding to, controlling some of our expenditure, overall, how we can show a financial restraint. And again, that was a very valuable email because they also commended some of the things that council is doing. For example, the street closure that we had on the Anzac Day. So that was also some of the things that, elected members should consider. And then the next one we received was about the Ebenezer Road and Research Road, as we've already discussed before. And the last 2 that are highlighted in yellow, I would like to just explain that because that wasn't in the report that I, prepared. These were received since the time of the writing of the report. So the first one was regarding the improvement in the Freeling Town Centre. I've already had a chat with my colleagues this morning and yesterday regarding some of the things that are already part of the, maintenance budget that they have requested. Some of the landscaping and restoring and painting and updating of the windows and decades and, pressure washing some of the facilities in Freeling area that we own. And so obviously, if you would like to have more updated details on that, I'm sure Megan or perhaps Craig probably would be able to add more to that, but it depends if you need more information on that. And the last one that we have got on the list is there was a quite detailed email from one of the ratepayers regarding the concerns regarding the cutting of the tourism budget. And some of the points that they have highlighted is that how come council is reducing the tourism budget, but at the same time in our long-term financial plan and annual business plan, we are promoting tourism. So there was kind of a conflicting information, but again, that was a valuable feedback. I've already had a chat with Karen earlier today and with the CEO. If you would like more information on that, I'm pretty sure they would be able to add more to that. So that was a quick, update from the submission that we have received during the 21 days.
Thank you, Hafiz. Councillors, are there any questions or comments in relation to the feedback that Hafiz has provided? Councillor Collin?
Yeah, I just got one question. So with Ebenezer Road, we have got a resolution to say that we're going to bring it forward to year one. And then it was only through agreement that we put it to year three. So what actually happens to that resolution? Does that just get ignored?
From a process perspective, I'd refer to Carrie. I mean, what we've done effectively is, and again, with good intentions, I think, is send out the business plan for consultation with it in year three. But look, ultimately, I would have thought that the resolution has passed, and on that basis, it needs to be honoured. If Carrie, if you wanted to provide some feedback on.
Thank you, through the chair. I am trying to bring it up in front of me right at the moment. I believe the wording may have been in regards to including it into a presentation or detailed report that was coming. I'm not too sure. I'd have to clarify those. I'll need to clarify the resolution.
Yeah, look, I think the question becomes, we would only need to rely on that if there was some disagreement about whether we should, if we agree that we should receive and act on the feedback we've been given from the community, then I would have thought that's a decision that we can make when we adopt the budget. I guess if there was disagreement about that, then we may need to figure out what the effect of that resolution is. Councillor Collin?
The only point I'd make is that if you, the people who read the minutes of the meeting when that resolution was the minutes they were in, they'd be able to understand that the road's to be done. So I can see the confusion for people in the public thinking that the road is to be done, and then basically an agreement was made between the administration and the chamber to do something different. So but if we were to honour the resolution, how much more, so it's basically got to bring $1 million into this year's budget. And to do that, we'd have to borrow the money. So the effect of doing that, what would that be? Can we work that out or not?
Fiz or Richard or Megan?
Yep, through the chair. Based on a quick look, Councillor Collin, and based on the discussion that I had earlier today with the CEO, obviously it will have an impact in terms of borrowing the money, but whether that's financially sustainable or not, we haven't gone to that level. I mean, I wouldn't say it won't be financially sustainable if we borrow, but whether that's a good financial decision or not, because we're losing the income, we're losing the grant in the year 2 or 3, and we're not using that grant money and we're bringing it into year 1, supposedly, and borrowing. That's something I would leave up to you guys to make that decision. Again, it's your direction. My job is to tell you, but theoretically, yes, we can bring it to year 1 and go and borrow and everything. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit more work for us. We can do that, but whether that's a wise decision or not in terms of losing that grant funding in year 3 or year 2, and then bring it into year 1 and doing a borrowing for that purpose is something that's probably not. Yeah, I mean, I won't suggest, but it's probably something that probably won't be a good financial decision in that sense, in terms of borrowing and losing the grant money, based on the facts that I've been told that there's a very high potential that we'll get the grant funding for that.
So could we bring it to year 2 instead? So what we've negotiated so far is year 1, then to year 3. Can we bring it to year 2? What effect would that do? And would that give us, or would that give us enough time to then get a grant for year 2 rather than year 3, and then maybe we could move forward, because we've got people who use that road and I use it, and it's not up to standard, and something really has to be done. I know there's roads everywhere that have to be done, but this is one that I'm quite passionate that it has to be done sooner rather than later. So if we are going to postpone it from this year, I'd be happy if we could bring it from year 3 to year 2.
Yeah, through the chair, I think at the end of the day, it's a straight financial decision for the elected body to make. I think what Hafiz is saying is there is a high likelihood that by undertaking the work in year 1, you cannot get a grant. It's simple as that. The grant is 833,000, is around about what we would look at. So if council borrows 833,000 over 15 years, it costs you 1.2 million. So it's a $1.2 million decision that you would be making to move it from, to move it into year one. But definitely agree that there is the opportunity to get it into year two, or I shouldn't say get it into year two, I should say apply for grants in year two or when they open up. And unfortunately, the program that we would target is closed at the moment.
So to that point though, I mean, we could also look to repay the loan sooner.
It's all money to be borrowed, but I think that the reality is, if the desire was to bring it into year one as a $1.25 million project, straight out in a complete borrowing sense, I think it would be fair to say that Hafiz would need to input that into the annual business plan and the long-term financial plan to determine what the impacts on that was if it became additional works. Carrie?
Thank you, through the chair. Just to clarify that the motion that was put, moved, seconded and carried was that council requests the Chief Executive Officer include in the remodelled budget to be brought back to council that Ebenezer and Branson roads be upgraded from a sheeted road to a sealed road within the draft 25-26 annual business plan. It's not saying that it is going to be done and will be done, and it doesn't say specifically what year it was to satisfy the resolution to be put into a remodelled budget.
Thank you, Carrie. So councillors, are there any other, Councillor Bill?
Thanks, Mayor Michael. Yeah, just the comment about the bottom one, that the concern, the budgeting, you're cutting the tourism budget. There's one up above it so there's two submissions about that. Obviously, we voted at the council chamber to not to reduce that funding. Was that a firm? Was that motion a direction, or was it a direct request? And given the fact we've had submissions, should we be looking at that motion again? That's my question, really.
Thank you, Councillor Bill. I guess it's probably a little bit different to Ebenezer Road in the sense that it was a fairly clear direction, but I guess going to your point is that, we've received feedback from the community on cutting the tourism budget, the difference being that would be a resolution that would have to be effectively rescinded, I would have thought, in order for that to be changed in the budget. Councillor Dean?
The motion that was passed was to remodel the budget with the inclusion of the reduction of the economic and bring a further report back to council. So in that means that we do have an opportunity to consider it, and in the light of community feedback, we can either ignore it or take it into account.
So I think I'll just pause here for a second, because we're starting to enter into, and this isn't a criticism of you, Councillor Dean, that we're sort of entering into more of a workshop style thing here. So, yeah, no, you're totally fine. So my question is, Carrie and Richard, to the extent that councillors feel that they would like to make amendments to the budget or propose amendments to the budget, how is it best that we go about that?
Thank you, and through the chair. Just on that point, the resolution that council requests the CEO to remodel the budget with the inclusion of the below, which was the reduction into ED budget, and bring a further report back to council to satisfy that resolution. It would just be remodelling a budget and bringing it back, not set in stone. So changes to that and other budget would be effectively adopted when your budget is adopted. However, CEO might want to provide more information on if you're looking for considerable changes, you would need to again remodel that budget, have it brought back to council so that you can forecast and see what happens with the long-term financial plan and the financial impact to each year.
Do you have anything to add to that, Richard?
No, I probably, other than to say that, I mean, in terms of those resolutions, they are to develop up the draft budget to go to public consultation on. I think we've, substantially done that. We're getting the feedback now. I think the aim is for a special council meeting on the 10th of June to relook at the budget or do a briefing session of some description ahead of audit committee, etc. Hafiz, just guide me on the timeframes and actions.
Through the chair, Richard, I would say that the ARC meeting is on the 17th, was supposed to be on 10th originally. So if we could bring back the info session a little bit more earlier so that we've got plenty of time to incorporate those changes, because we have to make sure that we get it on time for the ARC would be my request. Whether that's, whatever day before 10, like the earlier the better. But again, at the same time, we have to incorporate the valuation data in the next week as well. So I would suggest anytime, excluding the weekends, anytime between 5th, 4th, 5th, and then there's a public holiday, we can look into that perhaps after this,
So could we just say, look, ideally by next Friday, you've got feedback from the councillors, and we're not looking to make substantial, changes,
It
but
depends on the
dealing with things that have come to us, whether it's Ebenezer Road, whether it's the tourism budget, what have you, things that could reasonably be dealt with, and then you would bring that back on the 10th, and I guess then the full council could then make decisions about the things that have been added or requested. Yeah.
Yeah, we can look into that option, and whether it's going to be special council meeting or information session, I'll leave that to Richard.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, Councillor Collin.
I've just got a question. So where it actually says from a sheeted road to a sealed within the budget 25-26 annual business plan. So doesn't that mean the business plan, not the draft business plan?
Maybe in a sec, Councillor Dean, once Carrie's got this answer for Councillor Collin.
Thank you, and through the chair, thank you, Councillor Collin. Yes, so that would be, to be brought into the annual business plan, so the first year, but it's in the remodelling of the budget. So we're brought into the draft, so the remodel budget, there wasn't a decision made to finalise it and put it in. Does that?
Not really, because the draft that we put out to the public is different than this. So someone who's reading this, who reads this, I'm reading off this is a resolution, so this was minuted. So someone reading this in the public and then sees the annual business plan, there's a difference within the two documents. So that's why there is confusion here. That's why there's people here asking about this. So that's I'm just making that point.
So I think what follows from that is, we need to decide as a council that the CEO has given us some guidance on, if we were to change where Ebenezer Road currently sits in the plan that's gone out for public consultation. We've got some information about what that means now. And so, we need to provide some guidance or direction, I suppose, to Hafiz, ideally before next Friday, so that he can settle the business plan to be presented to the council. And I guess that goes to other things like the tourism budget But I think we just need to be mindful that we're not making too many changes at this point. We're just responding to community feedback. Councillor Dean, sorry, you had something earlier.
Sorry, I'm not sure whether it's still relevant. I just want to make the point that in when we approve the draft budget that goes out, we know that's not the budget and that there can be significant change. If it is very significant, we have to inform the community in detail of what we've done. So I wouldn't get too hung up on about whether it's in the draft budget or not. But we can end up with it in or out. That too much problem.
Thanks, Councillor Dean. Councillor Bill.
Thanks. With Colin's acceptance, I would suggest we try and get the funding next year, push it forward to the year after, so we can get that extra funding and or apply for that funding. It seems an economic thing to do, and that's what we're here to try and cut the costs of it as much as we can. So that would be my, if Colin agrees. I'm not saying Ebenezer needs to be done, that's for sure, but if we can save some $500,000 or more, seems a logical thing to me.
Thanks, Councillor Bill. So I guess that'll be a decision for a future meeting when we have whether it's the 10th of June or a report for decision, but appreciate that. Councillor Bill, or were you suggesting that you wanted to move a motion to that effect?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking for a direction now. That was what I was you say as it could do the draft next Friday. That was
I think
that was my understanding rather than the decision next Friday. If you just, I'm with you.
Yeah, I think what we're saying is if we can provide feedback to Hafiz over email or whatever before the 6th of June, whether that's to put it into year 1 or year 2 or the tourism budget, and then he'll come back at a meeting on the 10th of June, and then we'll be able to debate the merits of whether it's in year 1 or year 2 at that meeting. Do you agree with that?
Through the chair, yeah, I think the earlier I get the direction, that would be better. Obviously, I will give you that period of time that you're saying, but does that mean that once I bring that version after incorporating the changes that we would get, does that mean there's going to be more changes after 10th?
Just need to wait for councillor Allison and councillor Dunn. No. So councillors have just been talking with the CEO more around the process of how we deal with some of these. So I think there's a view that, with the changes to the tourism, that's probably not a material change. If that's something that council wants to support, that can be dealt with. Whereas Ebenezer Road's more of a major change, just in terms of the model. So what we would need, I think, preferably here this evening, is a motion that gives very clear direction to FIS that says we want to fund Ebenezer Road in year 1, or year 2, or we leave it as it is. In that case, there's no requirement for a motion. So would someone like to bring a motion on Ebenezer Road? Councillor Collin?
Yeah, I will. I'll do the same motion I had before, but I'll just change it to different dates pretty well. Is that how we can do it to get to year 2? Year 2, because I think,
Not committing to it because
Okay, so the advice I've got, councillor Collin, is we just need to be clear that we're calling for a report on including it in year 1 or whichever 2, whichever year. Sorry, I've cut you off a little bit, but just to get the motion right, on including it in the annual business plan.
well, it's 26, 27, isn't it?
Or because there's a long-term financial plan in it as well. So we just need to be clear.
One
about
follows the other.
Yeah, but the whole thing goes out with like the phasing of when roads are
Yeah, but
being
you
done
change one, you change the next. But anyway, I would just put it in next financial year.
in the coming financial year. Yep.
No, we've got it in the coming financial year now.
It's not in the business plan in the coming financial year.
I know, but that resolution, yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yep. So I think through the chair, I think what Michael is trying to ask is whether it's going to be in year 1
Yes.
of the long-term financial plan or year 2. Year 2, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Coming forward. That's right. Councillor Collin, would you like to speak to that? Councillors, do I have a seconder for Councillor Collins' motion? Councillor Fabio, would you like to speak to it? Thank you, Councillor Fabio. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to Karen?
Sorry, just through the chair, can we just clarify the resolution, please? That it's a report coming back, that it's being, we'll obviously remove the Branson Road part because that's from the previous one, but can you just read that resolution and clarify for us that that is correct and that those years are correct? Do you want to get their attention?
Sorry, Councillor Dean.
Oh, thanks, Acting Mayor Michael. I'm not sure what the intent of that motion is. Is it to present a report to actually model the effect of doing that? Or is it actually do it? Because I would be interested to know what the impact was on the annual business plan and the long-term financial plan of putting it in next year. Because that's the $1.2 million impact. And that could make a significant difference to the long-term financial plan. Whereas if it was the following year, if we get a grant, we do it the following year, not year 3, then that would be something that might be useful to model as well.
Yeah, so I think as it stands at the moment, the way that Councillor Collins' motion is, if it becomes a resolution, is that we'll receive a report that includes the analysis of doing it in year 2, which would presumably rely on a mixture of grant and council funding. So this isn't modelling doing it next year. It's modelling it with the grant funding in year 2. Yeah, yeah.
And it's a report. And the other thing is we need a road to be sealed.
Road to a sealed road.
To a sealed road.
All right, Councillor Collin, are you happy with the wording of that motion? It looks to make sense to me. Yes. Yep. So just to be clear, so the motion here is having the effectively of bringing forward Ebenezer Road from year 3 as it is in the current business plan into year 2, and the administration will provide a report on that when it comes back to us with the business plan. And the reason that we're doing that is so that we put ourselves in a position to hopefully obtain some grant funding, but also recognising the feedback we've been given, trying to respond to that and do it as soon as we can. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Dean? Oh, sorry, I did have one. Sorry, Councillor Dean. We had Councillor Fabio. Councillor Fabio, you were happy, you didn't want to speak. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this motion? Then we'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. All right. So I think that's...
Yeah, thanks for that. I was going to say, you also mentioned about tourism, economic development. Just before that, I would just like to know if we're doing something about that as well. Otherwise, that's the only change that we're doing.
Okay, so it would be a material change that we need to talk about here. So we do have a resolution from of the council that we were going to take that money below the line and present or bring back a report which effectively was modelled in the annual business plan. So if there was a desire to change that, we would need a further resolution of the council, Carrie.
Thank you, through the chair. No, just to clarify that resolution, I would consider has been met because it says that council requests the CEO to remodel the budget with the inclusion of the below, and it states a few dot points. So that was satisfied. There was a remodeled budget provided in the draft budget. So that, as far as I'm concerned, that has been met. So anything further would need any further resolutions.
Yep. So then the question is there anyone that would like to move a motion that has the effect of essentially of reinstating that 150 to the tourism budget? Councillor Dean, you'd like to move a motion to that effect, would you?
that do one on the tourism budget
It
reduction.
does, yeah, so
Yes.
we've.
I'd like a similar motion to that, but for this coming financial year, or the next one, to model the effect of restoring the $150,000 that was being criticised strongly by some members of the community.
Thank you, councillor Dean. Perhaps before we go to too much with that, would there be a seconder for a motion along the lines of what councillor Dean's outlined?
Yeah, I'd second that.
Councillor Bill?
I think it's been.
Okay. So we'll just let Carrie and Corey work that up for us.
Through the chair.
Hafiz?
Yep. The original motion had $150,000 reduction in year one, and then there was a $50,000 reduction from year 2 till year 10. So is this motion going to be just for the 150, or is it going to be 150 plus the 50 going forward? Just for clarification.
Councillor Dean?
My intention is for that whole 150,000 and then subsequent reduction to be all taken out and the budget be restored to its current.
Yep, thank you. I'll mention that to staff.
Yeah, Michael, for me. It reinstates the inclusion. It was just actually, it was a deduction of, wasn't actually reinstating an inclusion. It's just removing the deduction of every 50 years. Every 50. No. Yeah.
Current financial year, the 150 would go in if it passes. It added to the current budget, the budget that's coming, and then the 50 that was tailing out would then come back into the long-term financial plan. I had the same thought. Does this have the effect of a rescission?
Bear with me 2 seconds. Paul, can you bring that?
The last motion has been actioned to reduce the budget
Yes.
in year one, and then in the subsequent years, reduce it by a different amount. And that has been modelled into the draft budget that went out for public consultation. The motion that is being put forward based on that public consultation is to simply add $150,000 in year one and $50,000 each year after. So we into the long term. So you could argue that it's rescinding it. The reality was the resolution was actioned.
I can see the logic in that, yeah. Karen?
Thank you through the chair. Just to clarify for members, we've got the old previous resolution on the screen. Can you just make that a little bit bigger? So that council requests the CEO to remodel the budget with the inclusion of the below. As far as we're concerned, it has been remodelled, therefore the resolution has been met. And then that resolution has been resolved, complete, action.
So what we're now effectively doing, like with Ebenezer Road, is we're then amending the budget based on community feedback. So like Ebenezer Road was probably a little bit different in the construction of the resolution, but it's the same principle. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So we've got a mover and a seconder. Councillor Bill, would you speak on it? Do you want to?
I think it's self-explanatory. I just think I think we need to, take in the community feelings that's been shown.
Thanks, Councillor Bill. Would anyone else like to speak on this motion? Councillor Simon?
Thanks, yeah, through the mayor. The one thing I would say, like the community sentiment, so when it's like, I think what 2% out of 15,000 is roughly 0.01%. So put in another way, it's 99.99% of the people are okay with it. So I don't know if that's really that important. But the other thing that I would say, tonight we just sort of decided to spend $88,000 on supporting tourism, which is a great thing. I mean, I think it's the right way to do it instead of doing ourselves. So I'll probably be voting against it.
Councillors, would anyone else like to speak on the motion? In that case, we'll put it to a vote. Sorry, do we want to note the seconder? Yep. We'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? Motion is lost. Thank you. Councillor Dean is called for a division. For those who voted in favour, please stand behind your chairs if you're able. Are we right, Kerry? Councillors, you can take your seats. Thank you.
The order, if you read the actual procedures, it says stand in your place.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. I'll keep that in mind for the next division. Thank you, Hafiz. Are we?
Yep, thank you for that. So just confirming, so we will have only one change in the long-term financial plan and perhaps no change in the annual business plan other than the ones that, we may have come across during the time that we had last time meeting, which we will list.
Yeah, I guess I think it would be expedient for us to recognise that we've put the plan out, we've received feedback, we've acted on it. Whether whether the council's been in favour of some of that feedback or not, it's been dealt with. And so my guidance to the council would be, now that the staff have clear direction to settle the business plan, let's get on with it. Thank you. All right. So there was a suggestion to bring forward an item from the supplementary agenda. I'll need a mover to do that. That item is a motion on notice from Councillor Peter in relation to the Drovers Encounter project. Do I have a mover of a motion to bring that item forward? Sorry, Councillor Bill.
Yeah, I'll move.
Oh, you're moving it. Thank you. And the seconder in Councillor Fabio. Obvious. So we'll put that. We're on. Yep. We'll put. No, we're not.
Yep.
Right. Yep. So okay. So we'll put that to a vote. All those in favour. All those against. Motion's carried. Thank you, councillors. Okay. So, Councillor Collin.
I just have a question.
Yes.
We haven't been able to say Drovers Encounter without going into confidence. So why are we discussing something that's been in confidence since I've been on council? You know, open meeting.
Well, I think the question becomes whether or not the motion itself, I mean, that the project exists is in the public domain. Whether a decision by council to no longer proceed with the project, I think what we need to be mindful of here, councillors, is there is certain information that's been given to the council that's in confidence, particularly commercial aspects of the proposal. So we just need to be mindful of that as we debate the merits of Councillor Peter's motion. But I'll take advice, Councillor Collin, if you're not happy with that answer.
If someone is to rebut an argument from someone else, and they're quoting figures that have been, so say if you're quoting figures from the March meeting, the confidential March meeting or something like that, we are not to say, we're not allowed to say that in the argument. So that really, that restricts.
It makes it complicated.
It restricts the argument. So if someone says something that's out of confidence in this meeting or in the debate today, and everything we've ever done for Drovers Encounter has been done in confidence. So I just can't, I just want direction why we can suddenly be out of confidence, because there are things I'm going to bring up in that are commercially in confidence from the March meeting, a resolution that was done. So, you know, can I not do that?
Sure. So look, I'm agnostic as to whether or not this item moves into confidence, but I think we would need a motion to do that. Is that correct? Otherwise, we would need to be very mindful of what debate we have about this item.
Well, I'd move to go into conference because there's things that I'm going to say which I don't want. I think they're going to be commercially sensitive, and I'm very wary of my confidentiality agreement that I have with council. So I'd move that we go into conference.
We're just talking to the CEO. So I think the concern that Councillor Collin has is what we're. I mean, the effect of, without speaking for Councillor Peter, and he'll get to speak on his motion shortly. I mean, the effect of this motion is that the council is signalling that it no longer wants to continue with this project. It's fair to say that that's a big decision for the council to make, and no doubt there's some very strong views around the chamber on that. And I guess, you know, I think what Councillor Collin is signalling is that, you know, whatever his argument will be based on information that the council's received in confidence. I think that's a fair comment to make if we're debating the merits of this project. So I guess on that basis, if I'm not mistaken, Councillor Collin can bring a motion to move this item into confidence. Is that correct?
Need to let us know which part.
So we're moving, well, I think we're saying.
No. It needs to be clear.
Yes.
Which section we are moving into confidence because of.
So, okay, so Councillor Collin, are you suggesting that this item 16.3 is moved into confidence?
I am suggesting that because Drovers Encounter has not been spoken about in this chamber outside of confidence once in years. So I just can't see how suddenly we can put it out of confidence. I'm not comfortable with it being out of confidence. So yes, I'd like to move that it goes into confidence.
Okay, so my understanding is we're required to make a determination under section 90 of the Local Government Act as to the reason for keeping it in confidence, and also determine a duration for it to be kept in confidence. Are we able to bring up section 90 of the Local Government Act, please? Councillor Collin, the CEO, has suggested that maybe you'd like to articulate what elements of the discussion might be commercial, that should be kept confidential.
Well, I can't, can I?
No, I don't think you need to refer to specific figures, but for example, if it was, in general terms, the commercial arrangements, the proponents, the commercial model, I think is probably what we're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'll be going through a list of what has happened from 2019 through till today, amounts of money, who the proponents were. There's quite a list, but it just confuses me. The question I'm asking is, how can it always be in confidence? So it's been in confidence for that long, and then suddenly a councillor brings in a motion without notice, and for the first time, it doesn't go into confidence. It just doesn't.
Yeah, so I do agree with what you're saying, Councillor Collin, because I mean, my recollection is that every time this project has come to council for a briefing of some form or other, that entire briefing has been kept in confidence. The only information that's been shared recently with the community is fairly limited information that went out on council's website and through its social media platforms that speaks to high-level figures. So I think Councillor Collin is entitled to an explanation as to why this debate can occur in the public domain, given I would suggest the vast majority of any briefings that have occurred in relation to Drovers Encounter have kept wholly in confidence.
And the other question I'd have, if we're going to talk about this tonight, out of confidence, everything that's in confidence about Drovers Encounter will then be released. Is that what's going to happen?
I'll leave it to you. I think these questions are being directed to the staff. I've given you my view, so.
Thank you, and through the chair. So for the first point, Councillor Collin, was when staff go into provide an information briefing session or a report, they determine under what provision the information that's going to be provided at that meeting is why it is confidential. The motion on notice that we were provided isn't actually confidential in any sense. The motion, if we can just bring that back up, has no confidential information in it, and therefore there's no confidentiality around this. The project is known, it is known by name as well. So this itself is not confidential. If there's going to be discussion that you believe is confidential, then a confidential order can be made. We just need clarification on the provision, which is going to be the information that's going to be provided.
So what I'm getting at is that as you just said, from everything to date has been in confidence. So if anyone in this room is going to reference a workshop, a motion or a resolution of council that was done in confidence, are we allowed to say that? Or
and I think that goes to the issue here. So the fact that the Drovers Encounter project exists is not a confidential thing. People know. Council is privy to certain aspects of that project that are confidential. So I think what's being asked of you here, Councillor Collin, is we all agree that the motion here is not in confidence because there's nothing confidential about it. But if you're going to raise things that have been given to you in confidence, then we need to understand what those things might be without disclosing them now.
It's going to restrict the argument because they can't a councillor cannot use something that's in confidence. So what I'm
You can
saying,
if we move into confidence, but you
That's
have to
right.
be, you have to be
That's
clear,
right.
you have to be clear about what you're going to talk about. That's confidential. That's what we're asking.
well, I just said what I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
So can you just go up to the provisions, please?
Yeah, I know it's an iterative, it's complicated, but for example, you know, if you were to say, you know, discussion in relation to the commercial model, the budgets, the proponents, and things of that nature in a general sense, I think that would be enough to get us where we need to get to. And that would be sufficient.
Yeah, but we would make the decision based on the motion will be done out of confidence.
Yeah, the motion to move into confidence with that stuff in it.
No, the motion that we have, there is nothing.
This one is out of confidence, but we want to
one
keep
is
the
out of
discussion in
confidence. If there
confidence.
needs to be discussion in confidence, it can be had, a vote, and other discussion would be out of confidence.
Yeah, I understand that.
Because, sorry, my apologies. Because I think what's very clear is we have had public presentations that Kyron has provided to give public updates as to where the project is at. The motion, as was presented in its simplest form, is not a confidential matter. As such, it's been placed in the ordinary agenda. If there are components that you need to speak about in confidence for a particular reason, fantastic, we can deal with that. The motion as it stands is not debating the commercial merits of the project. It simply says we don't do the project. So if the motion was we don't do the project because the commercial arrangements are untenable or whatever it be, my view would be you could have looked to go into confidence. But where it is at the moment, it simply says, are you going to do it or not? That's all it says. That component will be in the public the way it stands at the moment, and there's nothing coming to me that would suggest that component would need to be any different.
So I think we're in agreement that the vote following the debate can be in the public domain, right? I would suggest that the debate should be subject to section D, subsection D, which, you know, in contemplation of any debate that occurs that includes elements of the commercial information, then the debate should be kept confidential. We come out of confidence, we then vote, and that's it. So I think it's as simple as that, isn't it?
What I can advise, and that is that the consortium who we've been liaising with and who we've publicly advised that we were dealing with a consortium have advised us this afternoon that they're okay with who the consortium is being shared with the public. And we have that in writing, and that information has been provided to governance already.
So I think, from my point of view, I think it would be far cleaner to just put the debate into confidence. If we want to share who the proponents are in future, so be it. I don't know that that's material necessarily, but I think moving in and out of confidence to talk about the names of the proponents and then back in to talk about the confidential elements of their proposal will get clunky and risks, you know, sharing information that we're not supposed to. So I think where we're at is we need a motion to move into confidence pursuant to section 90D of the Local Government Act to discuss information in confidence in relation to this motion. I think Councillor Collins moving that motion. Whilst we're waiting, understanding what the purpose is, do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ellison.
Mr. Mayor, does Peter's motion have to be moved first? Otherwise, we've got no motion we're discussing in the first place.
Don't think so. The question from councillor Bill is, does councillor Peter's motion need to be moved before we move the motion to move into confidence? No. So just, I know that there's some guests here in person and possibly online. So the effect of this motion, if it passes, is that council will move into confidence for the debate about the motion that's been brought forward. So we'll vote on that in a moment. Okay, councillors, so there's a motion here that's been seconded that we move into confidence pursuant to section 90 of the Local Government Act. Anyone else like to speak on this motion? I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? Motion is carried. Councillor Peter, do you wish to move that motion? Thank you, Councillor Peter. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Allison, thank you. Councillor Peter, would you like to speak to your motion? Just noting that things are in confidence, we'll need to stay in confidence.
I think that we have a minefield in as much as what I say may be regarded as a mishmash of confidence versus non-confidence. But anyway, I'll do my best. Originally, there was a collection of Kidman artifacts which belonged to Christo Reid, and the then Kapunda Tourism had them. There was an exhibition in the Institute. After that, I'm told that some of the items, like harness, a saddlebag that I can remember, were actually in the shed of Elaine Saltiel Mosley, who was active in the tourism. Anyway, it was proposed, I'll go back, it was proposed that the exhibition be housed in the library. But Christo Reid didn't like that. Now, this is where things started growing up like Popsy. The CEO proposed the Kidman International Exhibition. And under his guidance, we'll say guidance, Hampel's garage, Morris Hampel had died, the Hampel residence, and then later the Ag Spares premises alongside the residence were purchased for a total in excess of $1 million. Rumour says it was 1.3 million. Anyway, then things started to hot up. Roads were designated or termed the Drovers Way from Kingsford down south to the proposed Oscar Hotel, then to the Drovers Encounter in Kapunda, and further from the Drovers Encounter to Anlaby Station, 10 minutes or so north of Kapunda. Incidentally, the roadway to Anlaby Station was sealed, and the owners of Anlaby Station were to contribute to that. And I understand that that's still outstanding. There was Stockman, contact was made with the Stockman's Hall of Fame in Longreach, Queensland. We sent some of our economic development people up there to Queensland. Somebody from the Stockman's Hall of Fame came down here and spoke to us. And a mythology developed where this was to be, or as I take it, was to be a development of the Stockman's Hall of Fame here at Kapunda. Now, Kidman lived in Kapunda. He lived out here for a start in a house, which is up on the hill. He became very prosperous, of course, as we know, and he built Aringa, which is now the headquarters of the Kapunda High School, and he generously in the early 1930s donated that to education, to Kapunda High School.
Just a reminder, Councillor Peter, with time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, this area was never a pastoral area. We never had herds of cattle thundering around the place. It was small farming. And comparatively today, it's the same. Dairy cattle, sheep, a lot of sheep, pigs, cereal growing, and of course in our council area, viticulture and winemaking, which is a side issue. This mythology that's built up has been going on since 2019, and I view askance the discussion that has been contributed here in our proceedings tonight, because it doesn't step over the confidential aspects of it, which is what Councillor Collin has brought up. But I say there has been little enthusiasm in the community for Drovers Encounter.
Councillor Peter, we'll have to try and.
Yes, I'll try
Yep, thank
press it on. I won't be long. The Kingsford Resort down at the end of the Drovers Way was done up by the Ahrens family, and it didn't turn out to be prosperous. Yes, and they have sold it. The Drovers Way was going to go to the Oscar Hotel at Seppeltsfield. That hasn't gone ahead. We're at a standstill with the Drovers Encounter here in Kapunda, and Anlaby Station, which was the end of the Drovers Way, hasn't participated. There is a requirement for an enormous amount of money from state government in grants, Commonwealth government in grants. I'm sure that we as a council are expected by the consortium to contribute, and I think that it's just a hopeless case, and I don't think it should go ahead. And we borrowed say $1.3 million to purchase the land. We didn't have $1.3 million in our treasury. We borrowed the money. I'm sure that we're still paying down the principal and the interest. And so if the consortium goes ahead, they will be, there was talk about them having an option of
I think we might not
100
be able to.
years.
Yeah, we probably can't go into that much detail, Councillor.
Anyway, I think on the basis of these things, I think that it's time for council to move on and take the Drovers Encounter no further.
Thank you, Councillor Peter. Do I have a seconder? Oh, sorry, Councillor Allison. Yep. Would you like to speak, Councillor? Councillor Peter.
Thanks, Mayor Michael. I'd already spoken to that in the confidence. So.
Thank you, Councillor Allison. Councillor Fabio.
Yeah, through the chair. Thank you very much, Councillor Peter, for the history lesson. Tonight we're voting about the future, not the history of it. So we're looking at not only about our generation, but what our decision tonight makes and how it will prosper future generations. I've spoken in confidence, and I'll quite openly speak in public as well about the potential employment opportunities throughout this town, not only directly with Drovers Encounter, but also with the economic development which will bring into the town through retail growth and things like that. One of the fastest growing industries in Australia at the moment is the agri-tourism business, and I think this works in really, really well with what we already have within this within the Blight Regional Council area, whether it be the Barossa component of it that we heard about earlier, or the Barnes at Freeling, or the other numerous places that we've got around the place. So it's about bringing people into the area, spending money here, increasing visitation into these small towns, which again will trigger traffic counters and things like that, which will bring improvements to our major highways and road networks. It's about increasing the appetite for people to move to places like Kapunda to call Kapunda home, generating more rate revenue, which then again dilutes the economic burden that we have on our current rate payers. So in closing, I'd like to say that I will vote against Councillor Peters' motion, and I feel quite strongly about the fact that we should pursue the Drovers Encounter in the current format that has been put forward to us.
Thank you, Councillor Fabio. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak on this motion? Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Michael. And I thoroughly endorse the remarks that Councillor Fabio has just made, and perhaps also highlight the fact that it's not just the town of Kapunda that will benefit, but it will be the whole region. And the other thing that we should look at is, I think it was mentioned in the administration's comments, the benefit of that directly for the local community, and the cultural aspects of it, which are quite valuable, and the heritage aspects of it. So the other thing is I don't think we should lightly dismiss the fact that we will probably, if we pass this motion tonight, get the government offside, and it's sort of like biting the hand that feeds us. We've had a very good relationship with the governments, both governments over state and federal over many years, and that's been to our great advantage in terms of funding and grants and so on. And that cooperative aspect, as mentioned before by Richard, the unpredictability of suddenly pulling the plug when we've only got to wait perhaps not much longer to actually decide whether there is a proposal or not. What's the sense in stopping our involvement now when the end is actually in sight? There are a couple of tasks that still need to be done. One, the grant one, may take a while because that is probably affected by election cycles. And it is quite clear, I think, that if the grant funding is obtained and the nationally recognised company is involved, that the project would be a goer. So why not wait and see? I mean, if we pull the plug now, all the work that's gone in is wasted. The money we spent in working this up is wasted. And I agree that we need to look to the future, and this is a tremendous long-term advantage if we get it. The other thing is ambitious and complex projects evolve over time and do take time, and to expect it to happen cut and dried is pie in the sky. With this project, we are attempting to use a lot of other people's money to provide a large economic and cultural benefit to the whole region with a minimal expenditure of rate funding. And I believe it's certainly worth persisting with, and I'll be voting against the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Collin.
Yeah, I totally agree with Dean and Fabio. It is a very good thing to be, if we could do it, and all the benefits that it will come with it. But I've been on council 3 years in November. I've heard Dean explain exactly that every year for the last 2 years, and even before I got on council, I was in here when they had the first public meeting about it, and all these things were promised. So that was 4 years ago now. Every year the rainbow, we're going to get there, we're going to get there, we're going to get there. So how long are we going to wait? You drive past the land that's been purchased. So we paid 1.1 million for it. that I saw over there, everyone comments on it and it's still sitting there. So you've got, the only way this is going to work is to get 25 million from the state and federal government. It's gone from 4 now to 25. The only way, it's not going to happen this budget cycle, because if it was in May this year, we're now in May, the June budget for the state is going to come out next month. If this was going to be here, I think we'd have the money. So, you know, I totally agree it's going to be a good thing if we can pull it off, but it just doesn't ever seem to get there. And the proponent, you know, they've come and spoke to us quite a few, or twice. We've had Ben Coote come here, speak to us many times, and it's always next time. It's always, we're going to get this person, we're going to get that person. You know, it's just a never-ending thing that keeps on happening. And, you know, to Peter's point, that you have to, your patience runs a bit thin. There's a lot of other things. We're in the drought of a century. You know, there's other things we're going to have to worry about. And yeah, and I did say last year in a meeting, it was a CEO meeting, I did say that 12 months is long enough, and that was May last year. And I think that actually got put in the KPIs, and it's 12 months down the track. And there's no heads of agreement yet. There's none of this stuff. So how long we can wait? You know, so I think, yeah, I'm a bit undecided, but I'll see how I vote.
Thank you, Councillor Collin. Councillor Simon.
Yeah, thanks through the chair. I think everybody knows that I think it's a great project, and the potentials are transformative for Kapunda, for the region, even for South Australia. I suspect we heard a lot of ifs in here, like if it goes ahead, if it happens. So the only thing at this very moment that stands between it happening or it not happening is if somebody thinks it's commercially viable. And we are not that somebody. So that's going to be somebody else going to have to make that decision. Somebody else going to have to figure that out. Somebody else going to have to do that. I think we really, as Councillor Collin pointed out, and everyone, we've been at this for a long time. We've worked it up. We've given it all. We've done everything and anything we can to get it to this point. So I do agree to cut it now is a bit pointless. Like, we've already done all this work. However, and I've said that every single time, a year ago, 2 years ago, every single time again, when this rainbow came up, oh, one more step. Let's just not spend any more money. I think that's all the ratepayers want from us. Like, we've done everything we can. Let the commercial side work itself out, and then they come back to us, and then we can make the decision at this point. So I will vote against this. However, I absolutely understand the frustration with it. I understand that it's been pushed on and pushed on and pushed on. And I do understand the thing as well, that it's always been, oh, we're going to have to spend a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. But I'm against this. But I think if I can, I'll move a motion right after this saying we are in full support of this. However, we're not going to, it's out of our hands. We're not going to spend any more money on.
With staff working on the project. I'm mindful that we're due for a break, so I'll keep my remarks about this fairly brief. I think I have some sympathy for the issues that have been raised on both sides of the argument here. I share a lot of concerns that Councillor Peters raised, and also Councillor Collin, and some of the discussion that we had in the other session that I can't speak to in detail. I've got some concerns about the process and how we've gone about it. I don't know that it's been developed in a vacuum. There's not enough information in the community. People that are in favour of it probably don't understand fully how it's come together, and the people that are against it don't fully understand what council's role is in it, and how much we are or may or may not be invested in it. So I think as a council, depending on where this goes, we need to figure out how we do that properly. If this is to proceed, I think we need to get the right information out to the community so we can actually get some feedback on what people want. I'd be concerned about making that to sort of a decision here this evening in the absence of that information. I do share Councillor Dean's concerns that as a council, the perception is that, you know, we've engaged with the state in the last couple of months for for better or worse. We have put this out to public consultation in a form. And we're now here a month or so later with a decision to abandon the project without any real, and some of that, and my phone's been ringing today as well, and some of the feedback I've had is that there's concern that council will be making this decision without any information before it to base that information on. Now, we know in here that we've received a lot of information, and so we're not just coming to this point arbitrarily, but the perception that would exist in the public is that that's the decision that we've come to. And on that basis, to the extent that I don't get a say in an even chamber. I couldn't support the motion as it stands, but I will say that I have some real concerns about the time that this project is taking, the effort that's being invested into it, and my perception is that there's a real lack of progress. It keeps dragging on and it's going nowhere. We really need to get some closure around it very soon. Otherwise, I think my view would change quite quickly. I think everyone, oh, sorry, Councillor Annette, would you like to speak? No. Councillor Bill? Sorry, Councillor Bill.
Yeah, I'm against the motion. Just I won't bore people too much, but I do have I've got an Airbnb at my place, and I have a lot of tourists that come in. They're looking for something more than wines, and you know, I sent them up to Camundus. That's a lovely town. We went to the coffee shop, but that's if there's something to really be a real plus for our community, as Scott Hazel was talking about the lack of domestic travellers, you know, Adelaide people coming to the Barossa. This is a real draw card. That's for to get Adelaide people up to Camundus. So I'm supportive.
Thank you, Councillor Bill. Councillor Peter, would you like to close the debate?
Well, pardon me. I don't want to hold the proceedings up, but I do make the point that the Drovers Way has led nowhere. The Drovers Encounter has sat there in some kind of mysterious throes since 2019. I can't see the finance in terms of millions of dollars becoming available. And I see that, well, my opinion is that it's not the people in our council area who are going to necessarily benefit. It's going to be the core of the, what do they call them, proponents, who are in it to make money. And they're talking about millions of dollars of grant money. Well, so be it. But I don't think it's going to happen. And this is why I put the motion, and my feeling is that we should draw a line in the sand and say, that's it. We can't go any further. And we're paying off the debt that we incurred in buying the land, principal and interest. And as a council, we move on and we decide what our next move is going to be.
Thank you, Councillor Peter. So I think that closes the debate, councillors. So I'll put this to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? Motion is lost.
But I'll call for a division on that, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Allison's called for a division. Those who voted in favour, can you please stand in your place? Thank you, councillors. You can now take your seats. Councillors, I think it's been a pretty long session with some meaty topics, so we might adjourn for dinner for how long? 15 minutes? 20? 15. Okay, so we'll aim for 8:20. Thanks. Efficiently, so councillors, are there any questions in relation to the action items on page 8? Just give everyone some time to get back to where they need to be. Anything on page 9? Page 10? Page 11? Looks like there's a few reports coming in June, which is good. Page 12. Just for my benefit, these ones that are closed, do they come off next month?
Yep.
Yep, good one. Page 13. Finally, page 14. All right. There's no recommendations from committees. We move then into the infrastructure and sustainability reports. Item 10.1 is the monthly update. Council, is there any questions in relation to that? So the next item is 10.2, annual native plant giveaway day. And it sounds like that was a real success as well, with the demand outstripping the supply. So well done on that event. So there's a recommendation then that the council receives the INS reports and the contents therein be noted. Do I have a mover of that recommendation? Councillor Bill, thank you. Councillor Fabio, I'll take as a seconder. Put it to vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Councillors, next items are, excuse me, the reports for information. The first one's the CEO monthly report. Next is the Bees pilot program update. The 2022 Exeter Council election report. Item 12.4 is a report for information on caravan and RV time parking. I just note that there has been some queries raised from the Freeling community just in relation to RV parking. So this report for information, there'll be a report coming to a future council meeting. This is for short-term RV parking that the administration's been working through with DIT. So we'll receive a report on that for the future meeting. Councillor Fabio.
Through the chair, just on that report, the RV one, in relation to the Kapunda site, one of the proposed Kapunda sites being up Grace Street, which would be right next to the now empty North Kapunda Hotel. My only concern with that one would be would having RV specific parking along that side of the street potentially detract from a potential purchaser or leasee taking up that position at the North Kapunda Hotel, meaning that, you know, suggesting that perhaps a caravan parks, cars and caravans would take up car parking space that would normally be utilised by patrons of the hotel.
Can anyone respond to that?
Yeah, through the chair. I mean, I think that's a fair and reasonable consideration. The loss of parks for conventional use for businesses. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a few options in Kapunda that have been explored. So I think the report to council would look at a couple of options. Does the council want to engage with the community before selecting some locations, or just sort of go out and do it and monitor and assess if there are issues? I'll take your point on this one here. It may impact a sale of a business that's up for sale at the moment.
Thanks, Fabio. Councillor Fabio and Kyron. The next reports are just in relation to road closures that have already occurred for Anzac Day ceremonies at Freeling and Kapunda. There's a recommendation that the reports for information be received and the contents therein noted. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Annette. Councillor Peters, seconder. That's all vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. We now move into our reports for decision. We've already dealt with 13.1 and 13.2 earlier in the agenda. So we move then into 13.3, which is burning permits at Gawler Belt, which was a motion brought by Councillor Allison. Councillors, are there any questions in relation to the report and the recommendation? Anything you want to add, Craig?
No, thank you.
No. Councillor Allison?
Thank you, Mayor Michael. So I just wanted to clarify from reading all of that, that we would then, to get rid of those permits, you would need to rezone Gawler Belt back into a different zone. Is that what I'm understanding from this?
So through the chair, yeah, sort of. It basically revoked a township declaration for Gawler Belt. That would be then revert back as far as the EPA policy referred to, and how that would regard that space from thereafter. Yeah.
Okay, so just further to that, because I noted in there that it was stated that people are working with the community, but as previously stated, people that I speak to just, as I said, burn whenever they want to burn and don't get permits. So I suppose it's the catch-22 a bit, isn't it? Because they don't work on weekends, as in the burning.
Yeah, well, through the chair, in terms of responding to that, I mean, the compliance team tells me that they still get inquiries and they're still been issuing permits. The main reason for suggesting that that's been maintained as a system is it allows for one-on-one contact with people. For people who've already had a visit from our staff, they are familiar, they've already been and seen where people usually would do their burning, so the permit issue is fairly straightforward. If it's a new person who hasn't applied for one before, it allows staff to just go and inspect the site and what they have in mind. So they say that there's been some value. Whether that can account for burning without a permit or not, we haven't necessarily had complaints of that I've been informed about. So that's the reason for the suggestion in the report.
And just to get rid of that, there's a fair bit of rigmarole involved in. That's sort of what I'm asking in a roundabout way.
Sorry, if we get rid of the requirement for individual permits?
Change the zoning. Like, if we get rid of the permits, that changes the zoning. That's a fair bit of.
So through the chair, if you get rid of the township declaration, you remove the need for a permit. Yes. As I mentioned in the report, though, the risk of going to that extent would be that there'd be no control. So if there are complaints subsequently, there'd be no follow-up necessarily. And bearing in mind, as I mentioned in the report, that it's near Hewitt, Roseworthy is expanding, the potential for increased complaints over time is there. Yeah.
Councillor Dane?
Yeah. Just a point of clarification, where it says a burning permit featuring suitable conditions will be issued annually by notice for an area, does that replace individual permits, does it?
Yeah, so through the chair, that's right. It's another.
It still gives you a little bit of control, so it's effectively achieves what perhaps Councillor Allison wants without totally giving up all control.
Yeah, that's right. It's that's partly the reason for the recommendation. It's another option which should address the question that's been raised through.
That seems like a sensible compromise, I think.
Yeah.
Councillor Ellison.
Sorry, just to continue that, thanks, Mayor Mogul. So how do we go about doing that then, putting that advert on a regular basis?
So through the chair, from my understanding and bearing in mind we haven't obviously used this approach, after fire danger season normally finishes on 30th of April. I expect that you would issue a notice in a paper circulating in the area, say the Bunyip, which would outline what the requirements and conditions are for burning from thereafter through to the next fire danger period, in accordance with the EPA policy.
Okay, so if I'd like to move that as to go to that option, I think that would be a great outcome for the Gawler Belt people.
Yeah, so through the chair, that's part 3 of the recommendation that we go with that approach.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So Councillor Ellison's moved it. Councillor Collin is going to second it. Councillor Ellison, would you like to speak? Councillor Collin? Anyone else? No. In that case, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 13.4, excuse me, Kapunda Mine Historic Site and Situ Recovery Test Proposal. So this is the Enviro Copper project. There's a recommendation here. Councillors, are there any questions in relation to the report or the recommendation? Councillor Collins going to move it.
Just a comment. I was talking to Tony Piccolo recently, and he said that they have now got the government approval for what they're proposing here. So it's been the end of a fairly long process, but they now have that.
First test proposal, I think.
It's good news. Thank you, Councillor Dean. Would you like to second it? Yep. Thank you, Councillor Collin. Anything you'd like to add? Councillors, anyone like to speak? In that case, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 13.5 is a report for decision on a proposed dog park at Roseworthy Gardens, Flourish Estate. So there's a report here that has been prepared by Craig. Council will recall that we decided that these decisions would come to us for decision. Councillors, are there any questions in relation to the report and recommendation?
Recommendation.
Councillor Dean's going to move the recommendation. Would you like to speak to it? Do I have a second there? Councillor Peter, would you like to speak to it? No. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to the recommendation? Councillor Collin.
Yeah, I'm not going to support this. I don't think dog parks. I've done a bit of investigating, and they do end up being costly. We're going to have to put in, cameras, all this sort of stuff. And there's a lot of. Also spoke to the dog controller from council who strongly suggests they're not a good idea. So I won't be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Collin. Would anyone else like to speak to it? Okay. Well, in that case, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? Sorry, all those in favour? All those against? Motion, the recommendation does not pass. It's lost. Sorry, can you go back up? Just to clear that up then, Richard's just brought to my attention again, sorry, that part 3 of this recommendation is that council is noting that the dog park as part of the development assessment process, the Happy Trails Dog Park will be included as community infrastructure at the Central Reserve. So the question I have, I guess, on that, Richard, is that the resolution 257/2024 so effectively what we've done here is to consider the report that's been brought to us that sets out the benefits and potential risks of having a dog park, but then we're merely noting that the dog park is going to exist regardless. So I don't really understand what this report for decision is for, because we're not really making a decision. This is a report for information. Question for Craig is what's the effect of the resolution that we've just passed? Because I think some may have been under the apprehension that this was a decision coming for the council to make. Whereas when I read it again, the decision's already been made and we're noting that the decision's been made. And on that basis, this isn't a report for decision. That's a report for information.
When was the decision made to do the dog park?
Am I missing something?
Yeah, so I think if we go to the resolution, the 2024 of 257, it says if proposed authorises the CEO to consider whether council ought to receive a new dog park as part of a new residential development on a case-by-case basis, noting that they would need to be appropriately managed and maintained. So therefore there was nothing. So therefore we're noting that under the development assessment process that
My understanding of that is that was lost, so then it has to come to the decision was ours, and that's when
there was
Michael,
no other resolution.
when Michael came here to do his deputation to us, he made it I thought that we were of the choice to do it. So not giving you the right to make the decision on council's behalf, I thought then we had we were the chamber, rightfully so, then had the choice. And I thought that's what this motion was saying. And we're saying we don't want a dog park. It just got notes that as part of the development assessment process, a Happy Trails Dog Park will be included. And we're saying no. It's got lost, so it's not going to be included. So and it does say in this recommendation, it does say in Craig's summary that, as Michael said, if this wasn't voted for, they'll just make a park. Higginbotham intends to maintain a park. So I don't know.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm a little bit confused about what we're.
Well, that's what I was under the understanding of how it was to be done. That's
because I certainly remember the conversation at the time when this resolution was lost. Was the view was that the chamber wanted to say in these in future, and when I read this report, I got the sense perhaps that that's what it was for, because otherwise I don't know what the decision is.
So perhaps if I can elaborate, or we maybe find a way forward. So we did have the report in November without a resolution. Michael came, as we were discussing, gave his presentation, but there wasn't a direction forward from that point. So Higginbotham have proposed this as part of their Flourish development. We've indicated in the report, this is what basically the report is largely what repeating parts of Mr. Higginbotham's presentation at the time. They've indicated they're happy to deliver this. We put that forward saying we're noting that's part of the application that they've put in. They move forward that way. Now, council's decision in not supporting that recommendation again leaves us in a position where council can move a further motion now to say we'd rather have that be provided as a park, which Michael Higginbotham also put in his presentation to us. Does it make sense? Yeah.
Councillor Simon?
If I can, on that notion, can I move a motion, please, to say that council does not support the Happy Dale Dog Park at the Flourish Estate and would rather have a normal park? Is that a thing I can do?
Okay, so councillor Simons moved that motion and councillor Allison has seconded it. Sorry, Simon, your microphone. Thank you, councillor Collin.
I just said here, Mr. Higginbotham noted that if the nominated area is not developed as a dog park, it will be developed as a normal park. Council considered a report relative to dog park generally in meeting in 24. It did not resolve the position with the respect, so.
Okay, so we'll just wait for that motion to come onto the screen.
He prefers to have it developed as a regular park or something like that.
I think it would be good getting some.
Okay, Lisa, did you have something you wanted to add to this?
So just to provide some clarity, if the CCTV is something that is a sticking point, the developer's already committed to me in writing that they will do whatever it takes to make sure the appropriate security features are in place. They've talked about additional fencing, a second dog park. They've talked about maintaining it for 5 years. They've talked about the CCTV. They are willing to do whatever it is to give this community, this new community that will have a strong desire, a dog park. With regards to what you may be looking for as to what you mean for a regular park, that could be a number of things. We do passive, we do active, we do playgrounds. Across the whole Roseworthy, we haven't just got a toddler playground. We have catered through these developers at their cost where they're not obliged to provide any form of open space other than deliver a patch of dirt. We've achieved really, really good success and we're going to have some quality development and open space through that whole Roseworthy town expansion. If I could encourage the council to reconsider, this is an important feature. The Liberty development recently got accolades for what it's bringing to its community. We are going to have social needs for our community that is developing. We're not talking about a rural community. We are becoming in part suburbia. It is really important to consider that we're getting a developer willing to commit $600,000 to something that we particularly could be petitioned for in a couple of years where council won't have that money and we won't be able to deliver that particular product. That's all I have to say. I'm happy to take any other questions.
Councillor Simon.
If I may, just all I'm doing is taking Michael Higginbotham by his word, because he said if he's not going to have a dog park, then he's just going to have, and I think his words were a regular park. So that's all I'm referring to. So saying that he said if it's not a dog park specifically, it's going to be a regular park. I don't know what a regular park means, but
It just means green space. That's what they were as an option, would just deliver a green space where you could kick a football, play with the soccer.
Yeah, I think that's what we want.
Yeah, I guess it'd be open to council to declare that space as a dog off leash area anyway. And
Will that be part of considerations?
yeah, okay. Okay, councillors, there's a motion on the screen that's been moved by councillor Simon. Sorry, I forgot who the seconder was. It's councillor Allison. Would anyone like to speak on this motion? Councillor Simon.
Yeah, if I may, so I think my main reason for going down that route is that even if the developer funds this for 5 years or whatever his thing is. I mean, there's two things to that. Number one, it is the rest of eternity. It's still our council's obligation to look after it and clean it and maintain it and CCTV footage and everything else that comes with it. There's a massive amount of cost involved in that. The second thing is, and that's the cynic in me, I'm thinking, this gets done because it's probably a sales point, because he thinks he can sell more houses or better or whatever. And I'm not really believing that he does that for the community, because if you look, the development he's doing right now, there's not a single tree that it looks like a bloody ghetto. So like, if he really cares about the community, I think there's a lot of other things he could be doing and promoting a dog park. So I'm sorry, that might be a bit rough, but that's my reasoning for this.
Thank you, councillor Simon. In that case, councillors will put this to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 13.6, management agreements for various parks and reserves. There's an extensive recommendation here in a report. Excuse me. Councillors, are there any questions in relation to the report or the recommendation? Do I have a mover? Recommendation. Thank you, councillor Bill. Seconder? Yeah. Councillor Fabio. Would anyone like to speak to it? No, we'll put it to a vote then. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Right. Item 13.7, Gawler and Surround Stormwater Management Plan. There's a recommendation here. Are there any questions in relation to the report? Councillor Simon.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I got two questions. One is, I'm not really 100% sure what we're actually doing by it, because if we follow this recommendation, we approve or adopt the Gawler Surround and Management Plan, and I'm just not really sure what that actually means. That are we approving that stuff actually gets done, that money gets spent, or is this just we're approving that the plan as it is, and it's just going to sit on the shelf and nothing happens with it? Like, I mean, I'm not really sure what we're actually doing by approving it. That'd probably be the first question. So what are we actually doing by approving this plan?
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you, through the chair. By approving this plan, one of the actions out of that for the Light Regional Council was to provide some stormwater infrastructure for a couple of properties, and that can be integrated into our long-term financial plan. It can also, one of the other actions is to also develop a stormwater management plan for the Roseworthy area. So it's consolidating some previous older plans that weren't really completed, putting them all together to capture the growth, which in turn will provide some information that relates to how we can manage the stormwater that might flow down through to the Gawler area. What it also does is it allows for our council and the other councils that are part of this to apply for grant funding to be able to do some of those works, including develop that further stormwater management plan.
Then if I may, the following question would be, you have mentioned the Roseworthy stormwater management plan, and I'm wondering, we already got all these developments on the way, and they obviously, I would expect they would have detailed stormwater management plans for themselves. So what is our role in having another stormwater management plan? Does that override the existing ones? There's all sorts of deeds being signed about stormwater in the Roseworthy area. Does that conflict with that? Like, why we have to do a plan about something that, in my opinion, already has a plan? So I'm just a bit confused. So if you can clear that up for me, that'd be great.
The proposed action for a stormwater management plan for the Roseworthy and surrounds area is to consolidate individual plans that have all been done at different times, so that they're not actually interactive. And there's also areas that are missed. So this combines everything into one.
Okay, if I may, one more follow-up. So what is roseworthy then? Is it the actual line that is considered roseworthy, or how far and wide is that? Because again, if it's just the area that's already, it is already developed or it's going to be developed, there is plans and this should all be known. There should be no more spending needed to figure out what's going on there. I mean, I can pretty much tell you what's going on there. So, I mean, I'm still confused.
So to Megan's answer. Thank you through the chair. Not to intrude on Megan's report, but I just thought it'd be worthwhile highlighting that the investigations for Roseworthy only deal with water generated by the growth area that's defined. So there's a pre-development flow component, which is a broader catchment. Some of that goes to the northeast of Roseworthy itself, and that's been known. One of the earliest reports I saw was back to like 1994. So if you take it a step further, there is an existing stormwater catchment that needs to be managed. And my understanding of this is that it captures that broader area. The development for Roseworthy shouldn't be seen as dealing with all of that, if that makes sense. The investigations were quite defined to the growth area and what that generates and managing that.
Councillor Ellison.
Thank you, Mayor Michael. You know how much I love to talk about water coming out of Roseworthy.
Yes.
And the dog's breakfast that I call it, that runs down Redbanks Road into Gawler Belt. And I hear about it and I see it all the time. So I printed off the management and I've been slowly working my way reading that for bedtime reading. So my couple of questions are, and I've quite often raised these with Richard, which was the drain coming down through Gawler Belt and through 20 or 30 so properties out into that open expanse. And I wanted to move that motion to squash that, but I've held off because you were bringing up the next report, Megan. Thank you. So looking at that, well, it's still in the plan, but I think the amount of money that it would cost to do that would be ginormous. So that's just part one. But then part two, there was the Yenlo property, which I've noticed in there, which Joe, who spoke to us recently, looks like there could be some sort of dam system going into there. That's my second part, if that's correct. And maybe the use of that other dam on the left side of Redbanks Road might be an option there next to the train line, which I saw in that report. So those are sort of my three questions. Thanks, Megan.
First one, the channel through Gawler Belt, the proposed plan that we're asking you to adopt, it's been removed. It's not part of the new plan. That was replaced with consolidation of the other plans. That does capture a broader area, as Craig stated, and it comes from, Kingsford as well. And it's a greater catchment area that flows back down to, which is the wider Roseworthy area. Sorry, what was your second question?
Well, it was the Yenlo.
Which
so
one's
here,
Which
I've
one's
made
Yenlo?
185, I think.
It's one on the base of Torts Road and Redbanks.
Yeah.
Wasn't included in the original Roseworthy. That's
So
its own stormwater development. That's right.
So reverse it, it's Yenlo.
So all of those other suggestions would be formulated as part of the new consolidated stormwater management plan for Roseworthy and surrounds.
And then what about that new catchment dam? That's not
Same.
new.
Same. So sorry, just to add, so essentially the new Gawler and surrounds stormwater management plan that we're asking you to adopt has a lot of the actions removed. And for our council, it is very simple. A couple of a little bit of infrastructure in Hewitt, an SMP, and removal of that channel.
Councillor. Councillor Ellison.
That updated one.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. When might we get that updated? That's, well, because I printed off all of this, which is what I've been reading through, which was attached down the bottom. So I'm either sitting there reading stuff that I probably didn't need to sit there and read. possibly.
Thanks, councillor Ellison. Councillor Collins?
So what I understand this is just a more of a holistic approach to the whole area. That's all.
Yeah.
So
It's more in an integrated.
it's integrated the whole area. So it's a holistic approach to how the water is managed in the whole area. That's how I understand this.
Councillors, are there any other questions on this? Do I have a mover of this recommendation? Councillor Collins, thank you. Would you like to speak to it? Seconder? Councillor Bill, would you like to speak to it? Anyone else like to speak to this? Put it to a vote then. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried. Thank you. Items 13.8 and 13.9, councillors, relate to the GRFMA. So I've signalled to the CEO with the additional responsibilities I have at the moment that I'd like to vacate my position on the GRFMA. I've got other views about it that I'll keep to myself, but having said that, we need to appoint somebody to represent the council on the GRFMA. So there's a placeholder there for somebody to do that. Councillor Dean.
Mayor, acting mayor, I'll move the recommendation with councillor Bill.
Councillor Bill.
I love that committee. It's great.
Thank you, Councillor Bill. Are there any other nominations? In that case, would someone like to move the recommendation? Oh, sorry, you did, Councillor Dean, and Councillor Ellison seconded it. We'll put that then to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Collins.
I've just got a question maybe for Bill. So this new levy advisory committee, so this is a new committee that's going to advise on the levies further down, and they're going to start doing new levies. Is that the idea? Or?
Well, I haven't actually been to the committee meeting yet, Colin, but that's what I'm believing. There were plans originally for levy banks in the lower regions, and I imagine that's developing those levy banks to cope with it. That the option of the flooding is just a cheaper option than opening the river up at the bottom end. Well, it's always a problem with funding. They probably haven't got funding, I would think.
Yeah.
Just through the chair, the funding will be through the project itself, the Gawler River overall flood project that's being worked up at the moment, the $200 million project. That's where this will be funded from. So a component of that project is Gawler River levy banks, and they're just bringing a committee in place to give some technical knowledge. But given Bill's sort of close historical knowledge, I suggested that he might be good value to them. So it's actually, to be honest with you, majority of people on this committee will be paid employees from due or councils or that sort of thing. So I think in my view, Bill, I think adds a different dimension to just the technical.
Yeah, 100% agree. Otherwise, we're not going to be hooked, are we?
Well, we don't know what we're going to be on the hook for because our council hasn't voted on that. So this would be the council contribution to that big project. So the 200 million. So we haven't voted on that. And I think our council views on it are probably, I think they're fairly clear so far. But yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bill. Item 13.9 is again GRFMA, Adelaide Hills Council request to withdraw from the GRFMA. There's a recommendation here, councillors, that the CEO has drafted that in effect it would be that this council wouldn't support Adelaide Hills Council leaving the GRFMA. Are there any questions, sorry, in relation to the recommendation? Councillor Collin?
I feel I'm not quite comfortable telling another council how to do their business. If they want to get off, why is it up to us to say they can't or that we don't support it? I've always been a bit of a person if they've come to a decision that was they've come to a decision to get off. It's obviously been democratic, and they've obviously voted. So who are we to say they can't? I just feel a bit uncomfortable with that personally.
Richard, did you want to maybe explain why you've made that recommendation?
Yeah, I think it's really around the business case and making sure that as you approach government, that you've got a very united authority around that. And our view is that there are 6 councils, not all share the same view. But, you know, my view is that Adelaide Hills should remain until the business case itself has been finalised. And we work our way towards the funding. You know, I think our council is in a very similar position.
I can concede what you're saying, but I don't agree because they want to get off. A united front you haven't got because they want to get off. They're telling other people they want to get off. So you're already not united. So, you know, there might be a time in the future where they're telling us that they don't like what we're doing. But I just don't. If they want to get off, you know, they've obviously thought about it.
Thank you, Councillor Collin and Richard. Councillors, any other questions? Would someone like to move the recommendation?
If someone chooses not to move the recommendation, that's absolutely fine. I think what we need is a recommendation, or sorry, a resolution. I think, until tomorrow to write back to the Minister and advise what this council's position is in relation to the Adelaide Hills Council. So if it requests me to advise the Minister that it supports Adelaide Hills Council withdrawing from the GRFMA, that is a reasonable resolution to make.
Through the chair, do we actually need to say that we support them leaving the GRFMA or otherwise? Why can't we just, you know, say, you know, our position in the GRMA hasn't changed and we'll continue to be part of it?
Yes, I can't recall what the deed says, but the agreement between the councils, but I mean, we could also say effectively that we're agnostic about it. It's a matter for Adelaide Hills Council and that's it. You know, is that something that we could say, Richard?
We can do whatever we want. I'm just trying to bring up what the letter from the Minister.
Yeah, just a question. Did the Minister ask us for our view? I think that's,
I believe,
because the Minister makes a decision.
Correct.
Can say whether you withdraw or not. They can say I'm not going to accept your withdrawal.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to get to the.
No, but he may just be asking us to do it. He could be.
I recall seeing a letter. I do believe it was, the Minister was asking for the council's view on it, position on it.
Yep.
Our position can be that it's a matter for Adelaide Hills Council. It's not a matter for our council. And if they want to withdraw, I mean, by saying that, we're effectively saying if that's what they want to do, then so be it. Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Through the chair, because I wouldn't want them to turn around and say what we needed to do. So.
Yep. This is simply part of the constitution of the GRFMA, how it works, which is they've signified their intention to leave. The Minister, and it must go through the Minister to disband the authority, as you'd be aware in reading the report. And it's, you know, I think the Minister has simply said that he will write to, he's advised the Adelaide Hills Council that he will write to each council, seeking their views on the effect of Adelaide Hills withdrawal. So we either ignore the letter from the Minister, or of which the Minister is really saying he will reserve his judgment until he's heard from each council.
Well, if you think we have to, I'd move it if it says does not support and it just says supports. That's you've asked that's answering the question asked by the Minister.
Absolutely.
So, yep.
Okay.
Just a
Councillor Dean.
question. Will there be an impact on us if they do withdraw? If the answer is yes, then we could simply reply saying, although this is a matter for the, probably between the council and the minister, it will have this effect on us. And will it have an effect?
Yeah, it will have a monetary effect.
Then we should just state that. That's giving the minister information that he can then use rather than just give him nothing.
What we've equally seen is Barossa Council looking to withdraw. So, in all fairness, the Adelaide Hills Council is unlikely to make a material effect on the remaining council contributions. With the Barossa Council leaving, is more likely to make a a bigger difference.
All right, councillors. So we're at a point where we need to make a decision what to do with this recommendation. So
Happy to move a motion saying support Adelaide Hills Council's request to withdraw.
okay, we're able to just amend this now as it is.
What counts for Collins' movement? Yeah, as long as each point is very clear.
Yeah. Update. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you for that. So councillors, councillor Collins moved the recommendation that's on the screen. Is there a seconder? Thank you, councillor Fabio. Would you like to speak to it?
I think it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, I personally, I don't feel comfortable. I empathise with Adelaide Hills Council and their decision to do it. And I likewise, I think if we were ever in a position where we wanted to withdraw, I think through a democratic decision, I think it's our decision to to do so, not be held at ransom, so to speak, by any other council.
Thank you, councillor Fabio. Would anyone else like to speak to this? In that case, we'll put it to a vote.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, councillor Bill.
Yeah, I don't know about supports the request. I think we can be sad to see them withdraw, but we don't have to support their. So we're actually saying we support them. I don't think we need to support them.
I think we could say that we
acknowledge the ACC's request to withdraw. I think that's far better than supporting their request.
Yeah, well, but we're not really stating position, so we could say that we don't object. Well, I mean, as long as I think we all know what we want to say, but do you want to change it, Colin, or councillor Colin?
I've made it pretty clear. I just put supports because it's quick and easy. So, we took a few words out and put a few in, but if you would like to make it a little bit softer, I'm in your hands, Bill, in your wordsmith.
So I was going to say, is that acknowledges, my apologies, acknowledges Adelaide Hills' request to withdraw from the GRFMA and request the CE advise the minister that it raises no objections to AHC withdrawing from GRFMA?
Yeah.
Done. I can't remember what I said.
Can I just, thank you, through the chair, is that okay? We will be seeking an amendment to the motion, please. It's been moved and seconded. We would like a move to amend the motion. Thank you, councillor Bill.
Is there a seconder? Thank you, councillor Simon. All right, councillor, I'm getting conscious of time. There's still a couple of things for us to get through. So we'll wait for this to be updated.
Under item 3 and under item 4, we remove the word supports and we insert raises no objection to.
Thank you. We'll put the amendment then to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. I'll go with the other motion and
Comes the motion now.
so the amendment now becomes the motion. So do I have a mover for that motion? Councillor Simon. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dean. Thank you. Oh, there was, yeah.
Yeah. Which was councillor Collin and councillor Fabio on the original.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, councillor Dean. All right, we'll put it then to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. So there are a couple more things in the normal agenda. So we'll return to the confidential items after.
We've got to go do
Yeah,
supplement
13.10. 13.10 is a supplementary item, waste and recycling services policy. So this is a report for decision for waste services in Gawler Belt. Are there any questions in relation to the report or the recommendation? Councillor Allison.
Thank you. My question is, so with the feedback that we got, we did the survey, we didn't have a huge amount of a response back from the Gawler Belt people. And I noticed within the paperwork and the agenda that it says that they could opt to have that bin. So I just want to clarify that, because not everybody wants the bin. And is that feasible to run a service for maybe one person in one street to have a green waste bin? Yeah, if we adopt this.
Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. The survey came back, I think it was around 90 people that wanted to opt in for the Greenway service. And in speaking with our contractor, we've deemed that is a feasible number. And it is opt-in for the people who want it in that area.
And just further to that, how do we go about opting in? How will that come out to us?
There should have been correspondence sent out to you. If you haven't received it yet, you'll receive it shortly.
Thanks, Councillor Ellison. Councillor Collin. Thank you, Councillor Collin. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Simon, thank you. Would anyone like to speak to this? Put it to a vote then. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried. We then go to motions on notice in the supplementary agenda. Item 16.1, Councillor Dean, Kapunda Silo Art, which looks like a great outcome for a community-led project. Councillor Dean, would you like to speak to your motion and move it?
Yes, just very briefly. The fundraising has been incredibly successful, and we do actually have enough money now to be confident that we can do the project. And which is, some of that is a bit confidential until it gets put in the paper, but is all good news. And we have raised or had promises for, I think, over $33,000 of community donations. So many organisations and individuals have been exceptionally generous. So thank you to those who were. This is just to clear up some matters with relation to the future of the project. We need to get a licence, and I'm asking here for, or we're asking for some contribution to maintaining the actual painting. It's not a, when Rotary did the Map the Miner, they actually gave that to the council who took it over, and luckily they did, because they insured it for 140,000. So when it was burnt down, it could be rebuilt out of fireproof material, by the way. So for major public art projects, I think it's appropriate that council, who's part of this project anyway, does have an ongoing contribution, but obviously the mural committee would assist, I'm sure. But it's just to clarify matters a little bit. So it's just an in principle at this stage.
No, that's great, Councillor Dean. It's great to see the community get behind it when times are tough as well. It's a great outcome. So well done. So you're moving your this motion. Okay, Councillor Dean. Councillor Fabio, you'd like to speak to it? Okay. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Lynette. Would you like to say anything about? No, councillors, would anyone like to speak to this? Put it to a vote then. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried. Yes, I did. Sorry. Thank you. Richard just reminded me that I might have skipped over. Are there any questions without notice or motions without notice this evening? Yes.
Yes, actually, I do have as I said earlier, a motion without notice, if that is possible. And it just retains to the motion that was lost earlier about Drovers and Kana. So I think we need to do something like McKenzie just saying, we're just going to keep going the same way. So I've drafted something really small, not just before. I don't know if it's any good, but this is sort of the gist of it. Reiterates, and I got it in writing for you afterwards, reiterates its full support for the Drovers.
Councillor Simon, just a second. Sorry. Kerry?
Thank you through the chair. The process is that you would receive questions on notice first, questions without notice, then motions on notice, which we do have them in the supplementary, then motions without notice. I'd recommend that you follow the standard process.
As long as we get through
it's outlined in the. Thank you.
So are there any others? So there's motions on, so there's no questions without notice. There's no questions on notice. The motion, there's another motion on notice, which I've raised. So very briefly, some correspondence there of explaining the discussion piece around State Parliament Select Committee into Stillburst in South Australia. There was a recommendation from them that council consider waiving various fees and charges in relation to stillborn children. And I've put forward a motion then that council adopts that, which is up on the screen. So I'll move that motion. All I would say is that this is a fairly morbid topic to discuss, but my basic research would suggest that the financial impact to council would be negligible, and would be a great relief for someone who finds themselves in this unfortunate situation. So on that basis, I'll move that motion. Is there a seconder? Yeah, so Alison, sorry, Councillor Peter. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Alison? Would anyone else like to speak to it? We'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? Those against, it's carried. Thank you, councillors. Righto. Motions without notice. Councillor Simon.
This will be me now, yes. So that council reiterates its full support for the Drovers Encounter project and recognises its great potential for Kapunda and the region, and resolves to not spend any more money or time on the the Drovers Encounter project until such time the workable business plan and or heads of agreements are presented to council by the consortium. I'm not 100% sure of the wording. If anybody, specifically CEO or the mayor or anyone, has some ways of making this better, then that would be great. I'm sure you guys understand the intent of it.
I might make comment on it, and no issues with the motion, and good to see that you're suggesting that council puts its full support behind it. I'd probably almost go as far to say your suggested motion is either ultra vires or it's unworkable, because we've got to put some time into it. So we've got to write reports. Yeah, understand your intent, but I think it's probably clear I think it's fair to say that at an organisational level, it's Kyron and I that would attend meetings or whatever it be, and working with the consortium to actually get it to the point where we can get it back into the chamber or wherever it needs to be next. And obviously, I think that's So in terms of money or time, it's probably about not commits further funding to the project, and it probably will be enough if that is the intent you want.
But just on that, I mean, I think a previous resolution council effectively said that we'd set a budget for this, and once that budget's finished, then it has to come back to the council for further deliberation. So I sort of agree. I appreciate your sentiment, Councillor Simon, but I do sort of agree that I don't know that we're in a position to give our full support at this stage, because the whole thing hasn't been developed. Is that sort of what you're saying, Richard? The detail's not quite there for a decision.
I was probably looking more at the second part. I'll leave that with the chamber to determine point one. Point two is really, I think what Councillor Simon is saying, no money, but what I'm saying is we've got to put some effort into, getting it to a point where we can bring it back here. What you want to say on one, I'll leave that for the chamber to determine.
Councillor Dean?
I think as it's written there, it probably means we can't even have them along to a meeting because that's spending time. We can't even hear from them. And we can't, in fact, Richard can't spend time to invite them. So I think that if we leave out the your time bit, then and maybe say spend no more than is currently budgeted would be, make it more specific.
Councillor Simon.
If I may, so I really want to be very clear, specifically for the ratepayers and everyone. No more money. I'd say, look, we're done. We're done spending any money on this thing. Maybe we can say reiterates its full support for the Drovers Encounter project in principle. If that's more like, I'm not saying that we're supporting it as it is, but in principle, like this could be a great thing for this area and whatever's going. Because the way to look at this is, I don't want to spend any more time. I suspect we're going to have to, but no money. And the point is, the only thing that's going to drive this forward is if state or federal government work together with the consortium to expend some money. All these other dealings have to go on. If in the background they know the council doesn't support the project, then we literally might ending that process. So for us to say we're supportive of it, you guys can go and do it. I think that's important to support the potential that the consortium, these people can work something out. But that's my really reason for doing that, saying like we are supportive in principle of this thing, as long as you go out and do it without our money.
Thank you, Councillor Simon. Councillor Fabio.
Just through the chair, in the interest of professionalism, I just think I'd rather see words resolves not to contribute financially any further or further financial contribution or something like that, rather than not spend any more money. It just seems a little bit rough. Yeah.
They're just bringing some words up now which are more in line with the language that we would use.
Maybe rather than full support, just support. So full support almost sounds a little bit, like a blank check, other than the money side of things. But yeah.
I'd be more comfortable with that than I'd struggle with the previous version of it.
Do you want to say reiterates or do you want to say continues its support? We need to reiterate it to anyone? Continue supporting.
So Councillor Simon's happy to replace reiterates with continues its support. Yep. No, I don't think so. Because that's the next, well, yeah.
I think at the end of the day, I think what we're hearing is
The next
we
gateway
want them back here.
Yeah, the next gateway would be
We want them back here, presenting that in council at the consumer level, in the room, telling you what they're doing.
Yeah. All right, Councillor Simon, are you happy with that, the way it's drafted?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Thank you.
I'm off that.
Would there be a seconder for Councillor Fabio? Thank you. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak on it? I'll put that then to a vote. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Simon. I believe that brings us to the end of the non-confidential items. which then brings us to confidential items. So there's a recommendation that we move into confidence. Thank you, Councillor Lynette, I think it might have been, and then Councillor Simon. Councillors, we'll put that to a recommendation to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried.